Chapter 658, Liu Xingqian is possessed. Chapter 658, Liu Xingqian is possessed. Milk teeth. Jiang Hao furrowed his brows as he looked at the teeth. Do dragons have milk teeth too? He raised his head and looked at the young girl in front of him. He suddenly realized that Xiao Li was not much different from a human. Senior brother Jiang, should we put these teeth on the roof or bury them in the ground? Jiang Hao was puzzled. Why would they do that? Xiao Li said, Mother said that baby teeth grow quickly. Is that so? Jiang Hao examined Xiao Li's mouth and noticed that it was her lower teeth. So, should they be placed on the roof? In an instant, he flickered and appeared on the roof. He tried to find a good place to plant the dragon teeth. Only then did he return to the courtyard. Xiao Li was quite excited. Jiang Hao sighed inwardly. These dragon teeth should be worth quite a few spirit stones. The only strange thing was that the teeth still looked ordinary even after falling out from Xiao Li's mouth. It probably couldn't be sold. Master, give me this, said the spirit beast as it reached for the Archean Abyss Dragon Pearl. However, the moment it touched it, the spirit beast was sent flying. Xiao Li looked puzzled. Jiang Hao didn't pay much attention to it and simply picked up the Archean Abyss Dragon Pearl and examined it. It seemed that the pearl didn't make Xiao Li any different. It didn't restore her strength or memory. Could it be that I'm using it the wrong way? Jiang Hao muttered to himself. But there was no method he knew of. Should he carry it with him? After some hesitation, he asked Xiao Li, can this become smaller? Smaller. Xiao Li tilted her head in thought. Then, she grabbed the still drowsy spirit beast and said, shrink. As she said those words, the Archean Abyss Dragon Pearl emitted a faint blue light. Our two thin beams of light extended and floated in front of Xiao Li. Finally, the beams of light followed her neck, and the pearl shrank in the light. When the light dissipated, Xiao Li had a nail-sized pearl around her neck. Jiang Hao began to doubt everything he knew about the pearl. Was the dragon pearl a pill of some sort? Xiao Li, on the other hand, was very happy. After thinking for a moment, Jiang Hao came up with a possibility. The pearl did belong to Xiao Li, but it wasn't inside her but was a gift from her elders. That made more sense. It made him even more curious about what the heavenly thunder was. Perhaps it was where the dragon clan lived. As for Xiao Li's appearance in the village, there were two possibilities. She had either mischievously run away or had escaped to this place. Either way, it was a bit troublesome. Fortunately, there was no need to worry too much. He should focus on getting stronger. However, to avoid endangering Xiao Li, he specifically sensed the pearl and found that there was still a faint trace of aura. He used the mountain sea seal to suppress it, and the aura dissipated. It was not that the mountain sea seal was exceptionally powerful, but the pearl was cooperating. At that moment, the spirit beast woke up and jumped in front of Jiang Hao. Master, what do I get? A few tens of thousands of spirit stones. He didn't say it aloud. He would let it wait for a few days. Now was not the time to cash in the spirit beast. He needed to first understand the situation of the sect. The next day, Jiang Hao stood in front of the immortal peach tree and appraised it. The pearl would have to wait for another day. Almost 30,000 spirit stones. Jiang Hao breathed a sigh of relief. The increase in spirit stones was still manageable. If he used 30,000 from the 90,000, he would still be left with 60,000. It seemed like the rabbit would be satisfied with 40,000, leaving 20,000 spirit stones. The rest was a bit much. Jiang Hao left his residence and headed to the law enforcement hall. This time, he had been away for less than 3 months, but it still felt like a long time had passed. There were no visible changes in the surroundings. After a while, in the task hall, the senior at the counter smiled at him. Junior brother Jiang, you are on time as ever. When are you planning to go out again? Jiang Hao was speechless. It was probably impossible for him to go out. He wouldn't go out unless Hong Yuye came along with him. He couldn't intervene with Heavenly King Bu Dong. He also needed to contact Feng Hua. Feng Hua would have considerable strength, and finding the main body would be tantamount to seeking death. He was in no rush. As long as Hong Yuye didn't urge him to do it, he could take his own time. Jiang Hao paid 1,000 spirit stones and left 1,500 to be paid over the next 3 months. He had dropped to 89,000 spirit stones. If there are good missions, I'll have someone notify you, junior brother Jiang. The senior kindly offered as he left. Jiang Hao could only thank her quietly. Jiang Hao looked around but didn't see Liu Xingchen. He wondered what he was busy with again. In fact, he wanted to see in what state Liu Xingchen was. With a sigh, Jiang Hao headed for the Cliff of Broken Hearts. However, on the way, he suddenly felt the aura of a true dragon passing by him. He continued for a few steps before turning back to look. It was someone familiar. Liu Xingchen. However, there was something strange about his aura. The true dragon aura had become more pronounced than before, and there were also 2 other slightly weaker auras. These auras were well hidden, but Jiang Hao had been observing Liu Xingchen for a long time and was extremely sensitive to such things. Not to mention that his perception was far sharper than others. What's going on? Not only was the aura off, but he didn't even acknowledge me. Is this really Liu Xingchen? Jiang Hao wondered. However, he had already used his appraisal ability for today. Senior brother Liu, he called out. The person on the other side didn't immediately stop but hesitated and turned to look at him. You called me? He seemed puzzled. Jiang Hao was surprised but maintained a smile. Yes, I was wondering if you have some time, senior brother. I have a few questions to ask you. I don't have time at the moment, he said. In that case, I apologize for disturbing you, senior brother, Jiang Hao said with an embarrassed bow. This was not Liu Xingchen. Only after Liu Xingchen had left did Jiang Hao turn back. He was not mistaken. Liu Xingchen was no longer Liu Xingchen. Has he been possessed? The aura just now was that of a true dragon. Is the true dragon's lingering soul now in control? Jiang Hao was shocked. The last time Liu Xingchen had sowed the seeds of malice, he had given the true dragon more power. And now, it seemed to have overpowered Liu Xingchen. But this true dragon might be weaker than Xiao Li. Xiao Li didn't emit any aura, and no one knew she was a true dragon. I wonder if Liu Xingchen is still around. I need to find an opportunity to appraise him. The absence of Liu Xingchen would have a significant impact on him, as no one would inform him of the matters at the law enforcement hall. Some things were no longer as convenient as before. For instance, reporting undercover agents or getting on the list, and so on. In just 3 months, it seemed that there were more changes in the sect than he had anticipated. Chapter 659, Chapter 659, Creating a Charm Body. Chapter 659, Creating a Charm Body. Back at the Cliff of Broken Hearts, Jiang Hao continued to think over Liu Xingchen's situation. He wasn't sure if it was real or fake. But would Liu Xingchen really play such a game? This was different from before. He had been possessed. Once he lost control, how could he compete with these 3? Sighing, Jiang Hao felt somewhat helpless about having such a person around him. Sometimes it was entertaining to watch, but at other times, it was too dangerous. I wonder if I'll be able to see him tomorrow. Finding Liu Xingchen was not easy these days. He could be anywhere. If he left the sect, it would be even harder to locate him. Jiang Hao didn't believe that even the combination of a true dragon, a sorcerer, and a blood demon would be able to hide from the Heavenly Note sect. It felt like even appraisal wasn't enough. He also needed to appraise the sphere that had trapped the charm talent. If he couldn't meet Liu Xingchen tomorrow, he would appraise the purple pearl. However, the immortal peach tree's incarnation was imminent, and the seeds would appear when it happened. Those would also need to be appraised. After returning, there were more matters to attend to than he had anticipated. He hadn't even started on Feng Hua's case. He needed to do them one by one. After dealing with these trivial matters, he would pay a visit to the 100 Bones Forest to check on Bai Yi. In the Spirit Herb Garden, Cheng Chou was delighted to see Jiang Hao. Even though there hadn't been much happening in the past 3 months, he was always worried about something happening. Small matters were nothing to fear. However, if a major incident occurred, they still needed Jiang Hao to oversee it. But with Lord Beast around, things were much better. Has anything happened in the sect recently? Jiang Hao asked. No, But senior sister Ming Yi came to see you. Senior brother Han is also here, Cheng Cho said. Did they mention anything? Jiang Hao asked curiously. He hadn't seen Ming Yi for a long time and felt that she was quite dangerous. The latter was probably there to challenge him as he was likely on the verge of a breakthrough. No. Cheng Cho shook his head. Senior sister Ju Chan also came and asked about junior brother Lin Ji. When I told her he was at the mines, she went there. Jiang Hao nodded. In fact, Lin Ji was better off working quietly. It was good if he could stay away from his two friends. He felt guilty and inferior when it came to them. But it was different with Lord Beast, who had taught him. He had shown it all his flaws. How is Chu Chuan? Jiang Hao asked. Last time, he came to challenge junior sister Xiao Li, and now he's taking care of his teeth, Cheng Cho said in amusement. Jiang Hao didn't ask further, but instead went to check the situation in the spirit herb garden. The herbs were one thing, but the people there were more important. After a quick check, he didn't find any issues on either side of the spirit herb garden. By the way, senior brother Bu Yi came and said he has some high-grade spirit herb seeds. He hopes to collaborate, Cheng Cho said. Did you accept them? Jiang Hao asked. No one dares to do such orders without your consent. Others don't dare to interfere, Cheng Cho said. Jiang Hao nodded. He didn't dare to accept the seeds without appraising them. Senior brother Bu Yi also mentioned that the previous batch of high-grade seeds will have a new batch in 1 or 2 years, and he hopes to collaborate regularly, Cheng Cho said as he looked at Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao remained silent. Purchasing high-grade spirit herb seeds was easy, but completing them without spending spirit stones was not. He told us to feel free to mention any requirements, said Cheng Cho. Jiang Hao nodded. We'll see when the time comes. Now that he had reached the return to Void Realm, these spirit herb seeds were not as useful as before. However, he would definitely get a batch of blue bubbles if he received them. Not using spirit stones would be ideal. Without external threats, the spirit herb garden was relatively peaceful. As long as people in the sect didn't cause any trouble, everything was fine. In the past, there were such incidents, but since Jiang Hao had reached the Golden Core realm, no one had dared to provoke him. This was the benefit of advancing in the cultivation world. After a rough inspection of the outer sect's spirit herb garden, Jiang Hao went to manage the herbs. After tending to the spirit herb garden, it was already evening. Jiang Hao returned to his house and hesitated before deciding to visit the 100 Bones forest. He couldn't handle other matters, so he might as well check on Bai Yi. When he reached the 100 Bones forest, Jiang Hao remained outside the valley. But what surprised him was that it seemed like the people were constantly walking out. It's rare to see Bai Yi leaving the valley, Jiang Hao was astonished. He didn't dare to underestimate Bai Yi. He knew that if he was careless, someone as powerful as Bai Yi could sense him. It's quite rare to see Bai Yi leaving the valley. Jiang Hao thought to himself. Although his cultivation was somewhat higher, Bai Yi, who had access to spirit herbs, likely had strong sensory abilities. Jiang Hao had to be careful to avoid being noticed. At that moment, Lian Qin came out pushing a wheelchair. In the wheelchair sat Bai Yi, who was still frail. His cultivation had stabilized, and his injuries had mostly healed, but he had not fully recovered. Senior brother, where are you going this late? Lian Qin asked. Bai Yi looked up at the night sky. I need to confirm something. Confirm what? Lian Qin couldn't recall anything important. Do you remember senior brother Chen Chen? Bai Yi asked. I do. Lian Qin nodded. His signs are unstable, and I think he's planning something important, Bai Yi said. What is it? Lian Qin couldn't remember anything significant that was about to happen. I'm not sure. Success would mean he would rise. Failure would mean disaster. Do you want to help him, senior brother? No, I want to pass this information on to someone. Who? Jiang Hao of the Cliff of Broken Hearts. Lian Qin frowned. What does this have to do with junior brother Jiang? Do you remember the rumors? Jiang Hao practices the Bloodwish path, and senior brother Chen Chen is similar. Stronger individuals absorb weaker ones, Bai Yi said. So, what are you trying to confirm? Senior brother Chen Chen's blood wish path. They chatted and walked away. They soon disappeared at the end of the road. It was only then that Jiang Hao came out from behind. He frowned. Senior brother Chen Chen? He had almost forgotten about that person. Not just him but also Yin Wei. They were all related to the blood wish path. I don't know what these people are up to. If Bai Yi's information is accurate, it could indeed make trouble for me. It wasn't just the blood wish path. It was the fact that senior brother Chen Chen's magical treasures were still in his possession, and he had yet to deal with them. Once they were discovered, it could become quite troublesome. But for now, they are still sealed, so there shouldn't be any problems. Jiang Hao retreated to his residence. He had learned something new today. Bai Yi could read signs. In other words, he could foresee good or bad events. Shaking his head, Jiang Hao stopped thinking about it and focused on completing other tasks. Then, he would concentrate on collecting bubbles. The next day, since Jiang Hao couldn't find Liu Xingchen, he appraised the sphere that had trapped the charm ability. Jiang Hao was surprised. He never expected that it would actually work. Even though it required the heaven lock technique and had only a certain probability of success, this was still incredible. It was equivalent to stripping away one's original constitution and creating a new one. If this was used on a large scale, it would be chaotic. So, who should he experiment on? Chapter 660, The Real Genius. Chapter 660, The Real Genius. The charm body was a unique constitution. It could bring numerous troubles. For those who possess the charm body, living a peaceful life was almost impossible. This was the case for Ran Hui and his wife. Senior sister Yun Ruo was no exception. He had only survived because of the Jiyu poison, otherwise, he would have ended up dead. Even if the law enforcement hall captured her, she wouldn't have been in danger. The pavilion master of the Heavenly Joy Pavilion was not one to mess with. When Yun Ruo died, the law enforcement hall had to do everything in their power to quell his fury. They would never willingly kill Yun Ruo. Therefore, becoming a charm body meant there would be major changes around here and not necessarily good ones. Testing it on a good person would be akin to pushing them into a fire pit. I'll just wait for now. Jiang Hao sighed and put away the sphere. However, the appearance of a charm body would make the pavilion master pleased about it, which wasn't a bad thing for him. Otherwise, if that person couldn't restrain himself and chose to self-destruct in despair, the consequences would be unimaginable. But even if there's a candidate, handling this matter will be extremely troublesome. Jiang Hao shook his head and could only wait. The pavilion master wouldn't make a move against him for now. According to Liu Xingchen, the cliff master had negotiated with him. So, even if he went out of the sect, he should be safe. But no one knew if the pavilion master would abide by that. So, he didn't want to go outside. He stopped thinking about it and began to focus on his own affairs. That evening, he plucked the peaches and only left one behind. He then arranged an array to infuse the spirit stones into it. 30,000 spirit stones disappeared instantly. There were now 59,107 spirit stones left. A bright light appeared, and everything merged into the final peach. The spirit beast exclaimed, "Master, where will I hang out from now on?" "The bamboo is still here," Jiang Hao said. The bamboo in the courtyard had grown huge. It had grown into something different because it was near divine items. Xiao Li took care of it. She would water it and everything. The following morning, Jiang Hao woke up from his meditation and found that the peach tree had turned into ash on the ground. When he opened it, he saw a seed with spiritual energy inside. He appraised it. "In 3 days, I'll be able to obtain a bubble. I wonder if it will be purple or golden." In the past, they were mostly purple, so it was probably still the same now. If it turned out to be golden, that would be fine too. The spirit beast always gave a golden one. 3 days later, in the middle of November, the sky was clear. Jiang Hao arrived in the courtyard and saw the immortal peach tree taking root and sprouting. He also noticed a purple bubble. Jiang Hao smiled. He checked his interface. "My divine abilities are maxed out, but my cultivation is a bit low." He hadn't increased his cultivation since his last advancement because he had gone overseas shortly after. The main reason was that he had drunk a lot of the September spring tea. Speaking of September spring, Jiang Hao remembered the screen he had made. It was still in his storage treasure. He went to the bathroom, placed the screen properly, and felt that its design was somewhat ordinary. He might have to redesign it when he had the time. For now, he decided to focus on the divine ability. After a while, he finally welcomed a new divine ability. The divine abilities he currently possessed were frequently used. They were all extremely important to him. Who could complain about having too many divine abilities? No wonder Gui always wanted snow god pills. Having a good divine ability is of immense help in battle or for cultivation. Without thinking further, Jiang Hao entered his room, crossed his legs, and started to extract the divine ability. During the process, he felt changes in his body. It was a strange sensation that covered his entire body. It indicated that the divine ability was taking effect. In the southern region, Baizhu waited with Qiao Yi on a mountain peak. "Princess, who are you waiting for?" Qiao Yi asked. "The person I mentioned last time who is good at calculations," Baizhu said and then sighed. "I always feel that the southern region is full of troubles." Qiao Yi didn't quite understand. She felt that the princess didn't seem to like staying in the south. She had mentioned wanting to leave several times. The troubles and calamities had also been repeated many times, but she hadn't seen many disasters in the south. "Is the person you mentioned reliable?" Aao Yi asked. "They're here. Whether they are reliable or not, we'll find out," Baizhu said with a smile. Soon, a middle-aged man arrived. He held a compass in his hand. Some white cranes followed him. "Immortal Baizhu, it's been long," said the middle-aged man and smiled. "Mr. Jiyu, your white cranes are not very polite." Baizhu glanced at a white crane beside him. The crane on the side shrank its neck in fear. Qiao Yi, on the other hand, was in shock as she stared at the man before her and the white cranes by his side. These white cranes were not ordinary ones. The man wasn't ordinary, either. Such a powerful person was being so polite to the princess. "Mr. Jiyu laughed awkwardly. "I already taught them a lesson. I hope you'll show some mercy." Indeed, they had been taught a lesson. While other guests were okay to mess with, they had to be careful with this one. Otherwise, he wouldn't know how his white cranes would die. Back when the water dragon had met a tragic fate, he had personally experienced it. Even if he ran away, his cultivation would plummet, and his vitality would dissipate. If his white cranes were targeted, they would have turned into a pile of dry bones long ago. "I want to find out about someone." Baizhu got straight to the point. "Tell me their name, Mr. Jiyu said. "Yin Zichen," Baizhu said. The compass trembled, and starlight appeared. Baizhu took a step back with Qiao Yi. She still felt that there was something wrong with this starlight, but she wasn't as apprehensive as before. "Mr. Jiyu didn't seem to notice anything and just said with a wry smile, "This person is quite complicated. It might be challenging." Baizhu understood. It would be expensive and time-consuming. "Well then, please help me find out about the mountain sea sword sect that is coming to the south. Have you heard anything about it?" Mr. Jiyu asked. "A disciple of the mountain sea sword sect is related to Yin Zichen. That's not difficult. It'll take about 3 days, and I'll send the location to you." Mr. Jiyu nodded. Baizhu nodded and said, "You're right. Your cranes are indeed polite now." Mr. Jiyu smiled awkwardly and left. Baizhu let out a sigh of relief and then turned to Qiao Yi. "Auntie Qiao?" She finally came to her senses and looked at the princess with disbelief. "Are you the genius of the royal family, princess?" "Of course," said Baizhu with a smile. "I've said it many times, but none of you believe me." Chapter 661, Meeting Hai Ming and offering him a fruit. Chapter 661, Meeting Hai Ming and offering him a fruit. On the continent beneath the stars, Shu Bai stood in front of the burning immortal formation, neither entering it nor letting others do so. He simply waited. No one knew what he was waiting for. Many people approached him, but they couldn't make him interested in other places. It seemed that as long as they informed him of everyone's finds, it was enough. On this day, while Emo Chuan and others were still exploring a new area following the blue-robed senior, they discovered a secret chamber and some documents. While some were searching for other things, Emo Chuan began to read the documents. At first, there was nothing special, but the more he read, the more alarmed he became. "What's wrong?" asked the blue-robed senior. "Senior sister, take a look at this, and this," Emo Chuan exclaimed. The blue-robed senior took the books with doubt. At first, she felt nothing, but the more she read, the more alarmed she became. She felt as though she had narrowly escaped death. "It's a trap. If we had entered at that time, then..." When she thought of that, her hands trembled. The content of the documents was extensive, but it all boiled down to one thing: the statement about being able to control the burning immortal formation was fake. It was a trap left for them. Once the formation was activated, the heavenly fire would burn all life. Even immortals wouldn't be able to resist. Everything would be incinerated, and a catastrophe would unfold. They had almost entered the burning immortal formation and almost activated it. The horrifying nature of the revelation made it hard for them to stay calm. They exchanged glances and quickly left to find Shu Bai. A little while later, Shu Bai saw the books. "I expected this. You don't need to worry. Senior brother, did you already know?" Emo Chuan couldn't believe it. "Why didn't you mention it, junior brother Shu?" asked the blue-robed senior. Shu Bai smiled. "Don't you already know why, junior brother and senior sister?" The blue-robed senior felt ashamed. They knew that if Shu Bai had mentioned it at that time, they might not have entirely believed him either. They would have believed the documents they found and then would have argued with him. Their admiration for Shu Bai grew even more. "By the way, the documents mention the Shenyuan sword," Emo Chuan said as he looked at the books. "It seems to contain an accurate burial location." "Where is it?" Shu Bai asked curiously. "On the Sun-Moon Peak." Emo Chuan frowned slightly. "There's only a name and nothing else. It'll be hard to find." "It's in the Black Heaven sect," Shu Bai said. "I've been there. They have a Sun-Moon Peak, and the Shenyuan clan is also there. They probably don't know about the Shenyuan sword." The Shenyuan clan had already lost its inheritance, so it wasn't surprising that they didn't know about it. "Want to go check it out?" Emo Chuan asked curiously. Shu Bai shook his head. They couldn't leave. Even if they could, there was no need to take the Shenyuan sword by force. Since the Grand Earth Emperor was about to appear, they could leave the sword for him. If someone else tried to take it, they could take it to the Bright Moon sect. The Clear School Sky might also get involved. After all, that sword was wielded by the human emperor back in the day. They would definitely be interested. Although there were not many records, they all indicated one thing: the human emperor had suppressed everything to ensure the survival of the human race. Jiang Hao slowly opened his eyes. His current spiritual powers had been reset to 0, but he had indeed obtained a new ability. Without much thought, he checked his interface. Indestructible Vaja? Although the name of the ability was interesting, it was unlikely to be genuinely unbreakable. Looking at it now, his body didn't change much. He decided to try using the ability and see what happened after activating it. In an instant, Jiang Hao felt his blood, flesh, and bones changing within his body. Faint golden light emanated from him, although there was no significant change. However, there was a massive transformation inside his body. He took out his heavenly blade and swung it. Clang! Firelight appeared, but his arm didn't sustain any damage. With the assistance of his return to void power, he swung the blade, and it didn't have much effect either. He clenched his fist and felt the increase in strength. His speed should have been enhanced as well. "Now, I practically have no weaknesses." Jiang Hao was quite satisfied with this new ability. It made him feel significantly safer. It also provided more attack methods. Although not as powerful as the Heavenly Blade, it only required lifeblood and not cultivation. "I feel stronger. I want to test it on someone." Jiang Hao shook his head and sighed. "I'm getting ahead of myself." Even if his mental state had improved, This showed how quickly his strength had increased beyond the scope of his mental resilience. Putting away the ability, Jiang Hao thought about where he should test it. He decided to look for Hai Ming. He used to keep an eye on me, but now he's nowhere to be seen. With that in mind, Jiang Hao took out the Thousand Faces treasure fan. Of course, he also had a fruit in his hand. It was the tranquil heart fruit. At the flowing waterfall, Hai Ming was instructing some disciples. You've done very well, everyone. Just go back and practice more. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. Thank you, Senior. All the disciples bowed. After the disciples left, Hai Ming's face darkened. He looked toward the distant woods. Since you've arrived, why don't you come out for a chat? Is hiding from the world a habit you can't break, my friend? Hiding from the world? How could it be? Said a voice and startled Hai Ming. Hai Ming, you didn't notice I was already behind you? It seems you've grown old. Hai Ming remained calm and turned to look at the newcomer. It was a weak-looking scholar holding a folding fan. On the fan, the words, Smiling San Sheng, flashed. The scholar looked at Hai Ming with a friendly smile, as if they were old friends who hadn't seen each other in years. Who are you, friend? Hai Ming asked. You're quite the actor, Jiang Hao said with a smile. I've come to catch up with you and share some things along the way. I'm not sure what you mean, friend, but if you want to share something, I don't mind, Hai Ming said. Calling someone like me friend doesn't sound right. How can you call me a friend? Jiang Hao looked at him with a big smile. You should call me old man instead. Hai Ming looked at Jiang Hao in indifference. Not funny. Jiang Hao stopped and then took out a tranquil heart fruit. These are fruits I bought overseas. They are supposedly quite good. Would you like one? Hai Ming sneered. Enjoy it yourself. In that case, I won't hold back. Jiang Hao took a bite of the fruit. The taste is just okay. By the way, I forgot to tell you that I picked all the fruit from this tree. I also brought the tree back with me. Don't you want to give it a try? Chapter 662, Chapter 662, Killing You Like Slaughtering a Dog. Chapter 662, Killing You Like Slaughtering a Dog. Jiang Hao continued to eat the fruit while observing the person in front of him. The other person remained stoic, without any noticeable change in his face. At times, he even wondered if he had the wrong person. Or perhaps he had been deceived by Madame Gong. But once the bow was drawn, the arrow must be released. Since he had come here, he would treat it as a game. Even if he embarrassed himself, it would be fine. That wouldn't affect Jiang Hao. Soon, he moved to sit at the table. Why don't you come and sit with me? I followed your advice and went overseas. The trip was quite exciting, and I learned a lot. I got so excited that I rushed here to share it with you, Jiang Hao said with a smile. I don't understand what you're talking about, but if you want to share something, I don't mind. Hai Ming said while sitting down comfortable. However, his eyes were cold. Smiling San Sheng's name hasn't come up in a long time. You went overseas and returned in such a short time, it doesn't add up. Have we not met before? Jiang Hao asked. The Thousand Faces treasure fan is known by many, Hai Ming said coldly. Jiang Hao lowered his head to look at the fan and chuckled. I see. Then he took 2 tranquil heart fruits out of his pocket and set them on the table. The entire tree only had 3 fruits in total. Are you sure you won't have one? Jiang Hao placed the fruits on the table and began eating the second one himself. The taste is just okay, with a touch of spiritual energy but no benefit for cultivation. I don't know why they're so expensive. In fact, Jiang Hao didn't know the price of the fruits, and he didn't ask. If he asked, he might not be able to eat them. How could he make Feng Hua suffer in vain? Since they're so ordinary, I won't eat them. You can enjoy them yourself, Hai Ming said. Well, I kindly invited you, but you don't appreciate it, Jiang Hao said. He sounded somewhat disappointed. Friend, you are not from Heavenly Note sect, are you? Entering recklessly could lead to problems, Hai Ming said. He sounded friendly, but his words held a threat. Aren't we friends? Would you reveal my presence to the sect? Jiang Hao smiled. After I get caught, I can confess your involvement. We are friends who share good times and bad. Hai Ming furrowed his brow. How could I dare to be friends with someone like you? In that case, will you inform the Heavenly Note sect that I infiltrated the sect? Jiang Hao asked after taking a bite of the second fruit. Hai Ming thought about it. Friend, please leave as soon as possible. Seems like you consider me a friend. In that case, I'll give you this fruit. Jiang Hao picked up the remaining fruit from the table and handed it to Hai Ming. Keep it for yourself, said Hai Ming coldly. Aren't we friends? Jiang Hao looked a bit angry. I kindly offered this to you, and you refused it. Do you think lowly of me? Will you leave if I take it? Hai Ming asked. Of course. Jiang Hao nodded. Very well. Hai Ming extended his hand as if to accept the fruit. I hope you will leave soon and not return. Just a moment. Before I leave, there's something I want to do, or rather, something I want you to understand, Jiang Hao said as he got up and moved closer to Hai Ming Daoist. He then raised his fan and pointed it at him. At that moment, Hai Ming felt an inexplicable pressure emanating from Jiang Hao's primordial spirit. It immobilized him. He was unable to move. He watched as the fan pointed at his forehead. Swish! A flash of blade-like light cut across his entire body and sent him flying. Jiang Hao unfolded the fan and revealed the words, unrivaled in the world. Do you understand what I wanted to tell you now? Jiang Hao asked with a smile. Killing you is like slaughtering a dog. Today, I've given you the first gift. There will be more to come. In the future, when you hear the name of Smiling San Sheng, you'll only know darkness. Ha ha ha. With that, Jiang Hao disappeared from the spot. Hai Ming felt a sense of dread, yet he remained silent. He clenched his fists. Back in the courtyard, Jiang Hao breathed a sigh of relief. Since he wanted to suppress Feng Hua, it needed to be done gradually. He had no other purpose for doing that, except as revenge. Smiling San Sheng's name would strike fear in her. Otherwise, how could they communicate as equals? Feng Hua needed to know that there was no turning back. For that, she needed to be approached with caution. There were still 4 tranquil heart fruits left. The next time he contacted Feng Hua, he would eat them in front of her. He would eat the last one when he visited the Sunset Immortal sect. That would teach her. I wonder if she's getting anxious. Jiang Hao mused as he shed his disguise. Killing Hai Ming was not an option as he didn't dare to cause a disturbance within the sect. Besides, whether or not he killed Hai Ming had no impact on Feng Hua, as she could simply send another avatar. The first step had already been completed, and now he had to wait for the right opportunity. First, he needed to accumulate bubbles, which was the core of everything. Only when he became stronger would other matters become convenient. Otherwise, if Feng 101 Yue sent a more powerful avatar, it would complicate things, and he would have to avoid her. Half a month later, at the beginning of December, Jiang Hao resumed control of the spirit herb garden. Most people knew that he had returned. During this time, even Lian Qin visited and mentioned that Chen Chen might also be a Blood Wish Path cultivator. She wondered if he might target other Blood Wish Path cultivators. Jiang Hao merely smiled and didn't respond. He knew that this was a message passed on to him by Bai Yi. Apart from this, there was nothing else for now. Senior sister Ming Yi didn't appear, and Han Ming was also absent. It wasn't clear if they were too busy. In any case, nobody came to disturb him, which was something he found nice. Junior brother, you're back? Miao Tinglian greeted him. Senior sister Miao. Jiang Hao, who was taking care of the spirit herbs, stood up. You should look after junior sister Xiao Li more, Miao Tinglian said helplessly. What happened to Xiao Li? Jiang Hao was puzzled. Miao Tinglian sighed. Lately, she's been acting strange and damaging a lot of things. It seems like she's having trouble controlling her power. If you don't handle this soon, the master will have to step in. Trouble controlling her power? Jiang Hao immediately thought of the Archean Abyss Dragon Pearl. It seemed like he needed to pay more attention to this. Chapter 663. Chapter 663. Master, Xiao Li secretly brought me something to eat. Chapter 663. Master, Xiao Li secretly brought me something to eat. On the outskirts of Madame Gong's residence, a person dressed in a black robe approached step by step. He arrived at a wall near the back door. He stared at it for a moment, then placed his hand on the wall. Soon, a formation appeared. Then, he placed a bottle of pills into it. He waited for a moment, but what he wanted didn't come out. Another moment passed. The pill came out again. The person didn't immediately take it but stood quietly. It was unclear how much time had passed before he picked up the pill and left. He remained unaffected. It seemed like he came and went calmly. No one knew what he wanted to do. Senior Sister Miao, I know about Xiao Li's situation now, but why haven't you left yet? Jiang Hao asked. He looked around and noticed that Senior Brother Mu Qi was also nearby. He was searching for some spirit herbs. How old are you, Junior Brother? Miao Tinglian asked. 33, Jiang Hao said. 33? Will you turn 34 in a month? Miao Tinglian asked. Jiang Hao was speechless. Isn't 34 quite old? Miao Tinglian asked again. Jiang Hao didn't know how to respond. But, yes, 34 was relatively old. He had never been this old before. Normal people would already be married with children by that age, right? Miao Tinglian said. Senior Sister, do you have someone in mind? Jiang Hao asked. Oh, do I seem that predictable? Come, I'll show you. These are the ones I've scouted from various branches in the sect, Miao Tinglian said as she took out some portraits. Jiang Hao was speechless. Doesn't Senior Sister Miao practice her cultivation every day? Look at this one, a cultivator in the early stage of the Golden Core realm from the Ice Moon Valley. She's very obedient. When I mentioned you, her face turned red. She's excellent, Miao Tinglian said. Jiang Hao was at a loss for words. How about it? Do you like her? Miao Tinglian asked. Senior Sister Miao, I think my cultivation realm is still too low, Jiang Hao said. I need to focus on that for now. Early 30s and already in the early stage of the Golden Core realm. You think it's still too low? Miao Tinglian asked. Then, what am I? How old are you, Senior Sister? Jiang Hao asked. Mu Qi says I'm still a young maiden like the day he met me, Miao Tinglian said proudly. Jiang Hao was quite surprised. You met Senior Brother Mu Qi when you were that young? Yeah. Miao Tinglian didn't hide it. It had been quite a long time since she was in her teens. Jiang Hao nodded. But it seemed that Miao Tinglian was the only one who could attract Senior Brother Mu Qi of the Heavenly Note sect. Let's get back to business. If you think it's possible, you two can meet. I'll arrange it, Miao Tinglian said. Jiang Hao was speechless. It took a lot of effort to persuade Senior Brother Mu Qi to take her away. At noon, Senior Brother Bu Yi arrived. He came to discuss the matter of the spirit herb seeds. They were top-grade spirit herbs. Jiang Hao examined them and found that they required 3 months for germination, but Bu Yi's requirement was 6 months. It seemed like a normal request. Jiang Hao accepted it without making any additional demands. Bu Yi sighed with relief. As long as Jiang Hao agreed, they could continue their collaboration with the spirit herbs. Everything was going as planned. Members of the Candlelight Pill Pavilion were not concerned about this. Those who were still worried felt that their previous success might have been due to luck. Bu Yi, on the other hand, wasn't afraid of losses. He already felt indebted to Jiang Hao. If Jiang Hao wanted to try something else that incurred a little loss, he wasn't worried about it. This time, the planting wasn't as extensive as before. There were only 105 seeds in total. Jiang Hao spent 3 days planting them, just like before. He was responsible for these as well. Cheng Chou also discussed Xiao Li's situation with him. Jiang Hao went to check and found that the pearl was nurturing Xiao Li's body, which had disrupted her perception of her own strength. Jiang Hao had to suppress the pearl again. He suppressed it every 5 days and didn't completely seal it so that Xiao Li could gradually adapt. With the pearl, Xiao Li could defeat powerful opponents even if she was just in the Foundation establishment realm. She was safe, but her self-awareness was lacking. It wasn't suitable for her to leave the mountain. 1 month later, around early January, Jiang Hao had been waiting for senior sister Ming Yi and junior brother Han Ming. There were no changes in senior brother Qian Chen's situation, but there was no need to worry about it for now. The heart of the ancestral dragon had appeared for a long time now. It should have found its owner. This reunion should have taken place as well. However, it hadn't started yet, so it was likely that the owner had not been decided. After some hesitation, Jiang Hao called the spirit beast. "Master, what are we going to do today?" The spirit beast wiped its mouth and asked. "Is there anything that has happened lately?" Jiang Hao asked. "Nothing." The spirit beast shook its head. "Everything is fine." "That's good." Jiang Hao nodded, then grabbed the spirit beast by the ear and lifted it up. Then, he went inside and tied it up. "Oh, is it time already, Master?" The spirit beast was excited. Jiang Hao glared at it and told it that it wouldn't be allowed to eat anything other than spirit stones starting from tomorrow. The spirit beast readily agreed. The next day, Jiang Hao took out 490 spirit stones. "Master, shouldn't we start with a smaller amount?" asked the spirit beast. It was familiar with being tied up now. "Go ahead and eat," Jiang Hao said. The spirit beast could only eat one piece at a time. It crunched on the spirit stones happily. After eating half of it, the spirit beast hiccuped and couldn't eat anymore. "Master, it seems the spirit stones don't show me respect," the spirit beast said. Jiang Hao looked at it but didn't say anything. It kept eating until late at night when it finally finished all the spirit stones. Jiang Hao sighed. He wouldn't be able to go to the spirit herb garden today. It was quite a loss. However, the situation with the spirit beast was critical. If there was a mistake, he would lose 409 spirit stones in a day, and he couldn't afford that. A month later, the spirit beast began to get used to it. It even began enjoying it. "Master, it's morning. It's time for breakfast." "Master, hurry up. Xiao Li secretly got something for me to eat." "Master, I'm hungry." "Master." As time passed, the spirit beast started eating the spirit stones faster. Over a month later, 81 days had passed. It was almost the end of March. Jiang Hao breathed a sigh of relief. During this time, everything had gone smoothly. The growth of the top-grade spirit herbs had slowed down, but it could be compensated with a bit of extra spirit stones, so it wasn't a big issue. After collecting the bubbles, Jiang Hao appraised the spirit beast. "It seems to be the last time. It requires over 60,000 spirit stones. With only a little over 10,000 spirit stones left, after supplementing with some top-grade spirit herbs, he would have around 15,000 left. Recently, he had to take care of the spirit beast, manage the spirit herbs, and didn't have much time to earn spirit stones. He needed to start making talismans again. He had become more attached to the spirit beast. That wasn't good. He needed to release it soon. At that moment, he sensed the stone tablet vibrating. It's finally here. Chapter 664, Chapter 664, The One Who Entered and Left the Abyssal. Chapter 664, The One Who Entered and Left the Abyssal. C. The gathering commenced at midnight, and Jiang Hao made some preparations before entering. Just like before, he went straight to the common area. However, this time, he felt a difference. It seemed that something was glowing. It possibly meant that Senior Dan Yuan had experienced some changes in his cultivation. At that moment, everyone was slightly surprised. They noticed that Senior Dan Yuan appeared to be brighter than before. Had he become stronger? Everyone was curious, but they didn't dare ask. Alter ask Wanning AD out Tnella tasks, Sema WN Yuan Turnier to Jiang Hao. Young friend Jing, have you decided what you want? Jiang Hao knew that they had found the true dragon. He nodded. I'd like to obtain information about a person. Senior Dan Yuan asked, whom do you want to investigate this time? Everyone appeared to be asking for information, whether related to the end of all things, the Great Thousand God Sect, or something else. I want information on Elder Yang's daughter, Yang Shong, from the Sunset Immortal Sect. Senior Dan Yuan nodded. The others were curious. The situation was clear, especially to Gui. After that, they began the process of exchanging information. Xing had some recent matters to discuss and thanked Jiang Hao for his warning about the burning immortal formation. However, Jiang Hao waved it off and didn't pay much attention to it. "Do you need any information, friend Jing?" Xing asked. "I'd like information related to the freedom technique," Jiang Hao said. He had considered it. He had only warned Xing, and the reward wouldn't be big for that. So, he decided to ask something he was genuinely curious about, such as the situation with Liu Xingchen. Over the past few months, he had been unable to find Liu Xingchen, and this had affected him. With Liu Xingchen being a genuine disciple of the Clear Sky School and someone who loved drama, he probably practiced the freedom technique. Jiang Hao thought that, from the freedom technique, he might be able to understand Liu Xingchen's condition. "Very well." Xing nodded. "I can provide that information to you right away." Jiang Hao then saw some records of the freedom technique in the stone tablet, along with the beginning of its cultivation method and information about the freedom body. Jiang Hao was surprised by Xing's generosity, but he remained calm and continued with the exchange. "There is a rather powerful person overseas who has escaped to the south." Liu looked at Gui and Jing. "This person's name is Wu Yang. He seems to be injured severely. Please tell me if there is any news." Gui and Jing nodded. Jiang Hao couldn't get involved in something like this. All the people at this gathering were very powerful. He couldn't match up to them. He would keep his distance. "I have a rough idea about Yin Zichen," said Gui. "I'll keep an eye out." After that, when it came time for casual conversation, Jiang Hao was content to listen quietly because he didn't have much to say. Everyone else had a lot to say. "It seems everyone has a lot to say today," Gui said. However, before anyone else could speak, she said, "I'll go first. The disciples of the Mountain Sea Sword sect have come to the southern region, and there are many of them. They have a clear purpose, but I don't know what they intend to do. I found it strange that the end of all things hasn't made much progress recently. It turns out that the disciples of the Mountain Sea Sword sect encountered them. When facing the Mountain Sea Sword sect, they had to retreat." Jiang Hao was surprised to hear that the disciples of the Mountain Sea Sword sect had arrived in the southern region. However, he considered it a good thing because it would delay the end of all things actions. The end of all things, a force that dared to challenge the Bright Moon sect, had to protect their own. "Is it because of the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl that they've come here?" Liu asked. "It's possible that they're here for something else," Xing said. "The Jade Emperor's Sword and the Shenyuan Sword are also here in the southern region. The appearance of a Grand Earth Emperor is imminent, and the Mountain Sea Sword sect might have detected the aura of the Shenyuan Sword. The divine artifact is in the south." Gui was surprised. She had always thought that the southern region only had dangerous entities, like the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl, the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl, and Nine Nether. According to records, it is indeed in the south, and the people from the Black Heaven sect may have already discovered it, Xing said. "Why would the Mountain Sea Sword sect seek to claim the sword?" Gui asked. At that point, there was soft laughter from the highest seat, and Dan Yuan said, "The sword of the human emperor contains the sword's intent of that era and holds unimaginable power. Naturally, they will want to make use of it. However, it won't happen so soon. If anyone comes, it's probably some impatient disciples taking matters into their own hands." Jiang Hao remained silent. He had known that the Shenyuan sword was in the southern region, but he didn't have the exact location. Xing might know, but he hadn't disclosed it. "What happened overseas?" Gui curiously asked. The issue with the Dragonheart was making a lot of noise earlier, but it had gone quiet recently. Liu glanced at Jing. This left Xing and Gui puzzled. They wondered why Liu was looking at Jing. Jiang Hao was exasperated. "The matter with the ancestral dragon's heart has been concluded," Liu said simply. "Who obtained it?" Gui asked. "No one obtained it. Those individuals who took hold of it are using it collectively. But it seems like there hasn't been any information about it lately." Gui was puzzled. Such a significant event should have generated some news. Because another incident overshadowed it and put immense pressure on those powerful individuals, Liu said. This made Xing and Gui even more curious. They looked at Liu and eagerly waited for more details. Even Dan Yuan seemed curious. Liu glanced at Jing. At the time when the ancestral dragon's heart appeared, something else happened too. A person ventured into the abyssal sea alone. He wasn't devoured by it. Instead, he brought something out of the abyss. A blue beam of light illuminated the abyssal sea, and a true dragon's shadow dominated the world. He disappeared after that. No one knows what he brought out. All we know is that it's related to the dragon clan and exceptionally powerful. Gui guessed who the person might be. Liu nodded. Smiling San Sheng. Chapter 665, Chapter 665, Fear. Chapter 665, Fear. Jiang Hao felt somewhat embarrassed when he listened to Liu talking about him. The story he told differed significantly from what had actually happened. If the truth was revealed, he would indeed have a hard time staying here. Fortunately, it was smiling San Sheng, and that made it somewhat easier for Jiang Hao. However, when Liu mentioned the name, everyone turned to look at Jiang Hao. Don't look at me, Jiang Hao sighed inwardly. At that moment, Gui asked the question everyone had been thinking of. Friend Jing, what did you bring out from the abyssal sea? Jiang Hao felt that Xing and Liu were both sighing in relief at the question. With Gui around, it was convenient for all of them to ask the questions they all wanted the answers to. It's just a small item. Nothing more important than returning to its original owner, said Jiang Hao. Everyone began to speculate on their own. Because Gui was in the southern region, she was most concerned about these matters. Did returning it to its rightful owner mean that Jing had been planning something related to the abyssal sea? Why did this item appear? Was it because the heart of the ancestral dragon would resonate with it? Then, why did the heart of the ancestral dragon appear at all? It was because the Saint Bandit's seal had been broken. But why was the seal broken? It was because the Shenyuan clan was beginning to rise, and the Grand Earth Emperor was about to appear. The Grand Earth Emperor's appearance was due to the emergence of the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment and the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl. Jing had been involved in both of those events. The only unknown thing was how the Shenyuan clan had risen. But it was certain that someone had helped the Shenyuan clan. Everything was connected. For a moment, Gui was filled with fear. If her speculation was true, then everything was related to Jing. Could he be the mastermind behind everything? All of these events started when Jing arrived in the southern region. In just over a decade, the southern region had undergone earth-shaking changes. At that point, Jing's mysterious persona was becoming even more apparent, at least for Gui. Seeing their surprise, Jiang Hao felt somewhat relieved. It was best not to ask too much. However, he had not lied. He had returned the pearl to its rightful owner. It was already with Xiao Li, and it had little to nothing to do with him. Friend Jing, are you still overseas? Dan Yuan asked. Jiang Hao shook his head. I'm already in the southern region. Gui's face changed. That meant Nine Nether was in the south right now. For some reason, she was suddenly less afraid than before. When the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl had appeared in the south, she had been worried. When the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl also appeared in the southern region, she felt that her life was over. But with Nine Nether in the south, she didn't care. If one of the items exploded, everything would be annihilated. In that case, friend Jing, you should pay attention to the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl. You have some affinity with such ancient items, Dan Yuan said with a smile. Jiang Hao nodded in agreement. He had already sensed it once, and it seemed to be nearby. He would pay attention to it, even if Dan Yuan had not mentioned it. Regardless, he did not want to take any risks. After the gathering, they talked about other news. Most of the discussion revolved around the Heavenly King Hai Luo and Shong'an. Xing's words caught Jiang Hao's attention. This made him think of Liu Xingchen. For a moment, he wondered if Liu Xingchen had gotten himself into trouble. The meeting ended. Jiang Hao learned that Gui was planning to search for the Shenyuan sword, which might have something to do with the person she was looking for. Xing and Liu, on the other hand, did not seem to have any intention of doing so. Inside the wooden house, Jiang Hao opened his eyes. He immediately took out a notebook and began recording the freedom technique. The freedom technique could be divided into 3 categories: the technique itself, the freeform body, and some introductions to it. The technique was only described up to the primordial spirit realm, but the freeform was complete. The introduction to it provided a more comprehensive study. He wrote down everything. Fortunately, he had a good memory, but he was afraid he would forget it after a while. The freedom technique is indeed remarkable. It firmly believes in one's own path and strengthens one's beliefs and freedom from constraints. It's not suitable for me, but it could be useful for others. If he taught it to someone else, there shouldn't be a problem. After all, Jing and Jiang Hao were related in the eyes of those at the gathering. The main issue was whether the Clear Sky School would intervene. It was their technique, after all. However, the Clear Sky School was in the eastern region and had almost no presence in the southern region. It was challenging to control something from that greater distance. It was just that recently, people from the Clear Sky School were in the south. It was troublesome to teach someone else the technique. After that, he read about the free form. It was about condensing an avatar, which required transferring of primordial spirit. Unlike the Great Thousand spiritual avatar of the Great Thousand God sect, it could not act independently. The advantage was that it could be nourished by the main body's power. Strengthening the clone would also nourish the main body and ensure that the cultivation realm remained high. Therefore, no matter which body he used, it would not significantly affect his overall strength. Very powerful, but unfortunately, I don't cultivate avatars. Jiang Hao shook his head. He cultivated the Hongmeng Heart Sutra, which didn't need avatars. After that, he read the introduction to freedom technique. Most of it was about abilities, and it was impossible to determine Liu Xingchen's level from it. It was only when he saw the section on the gifted that he was alarmed. Many people practiced the freedom technique, but only a few were suitable for it. Those who could cultivate a freedom spirit were extremely rare. The freedom spirit was unrestrained, vast, limitless, and extremely rare. Everyone who cultivated the freedom spirit was a disciple of the Clear Sky School, not because only they could do it, but because they were chosen by the sect. The Clear Sky School didn't conceal the freedom technique. Anyone who had received the knowledge could cultivate it. However, those who cultivated the freedom spirit were easier to keep an eye on. Jiang Hao was stunned. It seemed that the freedom spirit was related to the Clear Sky School. So that's how it is. Jiang Hao was surprised. In that case, could Liu Xingchen have a freedom spirit? That's why he was able to suppress those remnants all along. If he were to combine it with some treasures, he would be even more powerful. But I'm not sure if Liu Xingchen really has a freedom spirit. If he does, how could there be problems with his spirit and aura? Jiang Hao shook his head. He couldn't find an answer. But the probability of him having a freedom spirit was high. After that, Jiang Hao began recording the details of the gathering. There wasn't much, but it was evident that the southern region would face issues in the future. For now, it seemed unrelated to the Heavenly Note sect. So, he could focus on growing spirit herbs. At the 100 Flowers Lake, a figure in red and white sat in a pavilion and gazed at the moonlight. There was a cup of tea beside her. After some time, she finally said, "Is there any news?" Baiji, who had been waiting for a while, respectfully said, "We've found a target." "You found Feng Hua?" Hong Yuye looked at Baiji. The situation with Feng Hua is more complicated than expected. We've only found some of their avatars so far. We haven't located their main body. However, we received information from overseas that due to internal conflicts in the Heavenly Tower, a powerful individual sought refuge in the southern region. We plan to capture him and obtain more information from him, Baiji said. Chapter 666, Chapter 666, Time is truly a delicate blade. Chapter 666, Time is truly a delicate blade. The people from the Heavenly Tower? Asked Hong Yuye. Yes, according to the information overseas, He was a strong contender qualified to compete for the master position, but he was defeated. So, he had no choice but to escape to the southern region. Our people have already identified his location, and the leaders of various branches have set out. Once we catch him, we will be able to obtain more information about Fenghua and the end of all things. These forces were already investigating the situation regarding the heavenly note sect. Hong Yuye nodded. Is there anything else? It seems that the Grand Earth Emperor is about to appear. Recently, people from the Mountain Sea Sword sect have arrived in the southern region. They greeted us and mentioned that someone would come to visit in some time. It seems to be related to Kendo. They should be here in goodwill, Baiji said. What did Kendo say after watching Heaven Lock? Hong Yuye asked. He said that the most important part of Heaven Lock cannot be exposed, and he hopes that we can keep it sealed. This object can turn the world of cultivation upside down, Baiji replied. At first, she was quite shaken when she heard about these things. She had never imagined that Heaven Lock was so terrifying. She would naturally consider Kendo's words. However, she couldn't dare to take back the command she had received from the sect master, which was to hand Heaven Lock to Jiang Hao. In addition, she suspected that Jiang Hao might have seen the most important part of Heaven Lock. The unusual actions of Yinshaw, along with the demands of the Saint Bandits member Nangong Yu, all indicated one thing. The Saint Bandits paid great attention to Jiang Hao, or more precisely, the person behind him. Regarding Heaven Lock, there's no need to worry too much. Let's just go with the flow, Hong Yuye said calmly. Recently, the sect has found some traitors, but their agendas are quite ordinary. There is an elder who was bribed by the Sunset Immortal sect, but he hasn't acted yet. We haven't made a move either. We're currently looking for an opportunity to uncover the Sunset Immortal sect's involvement. Jiang Hao recently went out. He seems to be seeking an opportunity to improve his cultivation. He's just one step away. Although he often has some involvement with the spies, it's only suspicion, and we can't find any concrete evidence. The heavenly fragrance Dao flower hasn't shown any changes. It seems that the people targeting it have completely gone into hiding. Hong Yuye gazed at the teacup on the table with a slight frown. The Grand Earth Emperor is about to appear, she suddenly asked. Yes. Baiji nodded. Send some people to the Black Heaven sect, Hong Yuye said. Baiji was puzzled. Why did they need to send people when the Grand Earth Emperor was about to appear? Who should they send? As she hesitated, Hong Yuye dismissed her. In the end, she could only bow and leave. After leaving, Baiji frowned. Does the sect master have some plan, or was that just a casual remark? When the Grand Earth Emperor appears, should we send people there because his appearance will bring about an omen and offer benefits? That should be the case. Let's make the arrangements. They should handle it on their own. For now, our top priority is to capture the Heavenly Tower's members. In the wooden house at the Cliff of Broken Hearts, Jiang Hao finished writing down everything. At the meeting, Dan Yuan's tasks remained focused on the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl and the Heavenly Fragrance Dao flower. Xing didn't make any transactions, Liu wanted to find Wu Yang, and Gui had finished her transaction and only needed to keep an eye out. The ancestral dragon's heart had been jointly accepted, and Smiling San Sheng had earned quite a reputation. The Mountain Sea Sword sect might have sensed the appearance of the Shenyuan sword. The Black Heaven sect might have, too. Looking at his notes, Jiang Hao heaved a sigh of relief. Since there's nothing for me, I should focus on improving myself. For him, staying quiet was the right thing to do. While the outside world might be exciting, it wasn't safe, and he couldn't accumulate bubbles. What a shame. If only I could go to the mines. Jiang Hao chuckled and began to meditate. He needed peace of mind and to begin cultivating high-quality spirit herbs. 150 spirit herbs were left, and it was time to cultivate them carefully. The matter with the spirit beast had been concluded, so there was no need to be distracted by it. However, there were only 2 months left for the spirit herbs to grow, so he might need to spend some spirit stones. Jiang Hao checked his interface. Halfway there. It seems that the next step for advancement is not far off. With the boost from the high-quality spirit herbs, His cultivation had indeed increased significantly. Now he had over 10,000 spirit stones, which he could actually use for cultivation. I wonder if senior brother Bu Yi is still around. Jiang Hao observed the spirit herbs. Their quality was acceptable. Satisfied with what he saw, he decided to have Cheng Chou find the people he was looking for. Then, he went to take care of the spirit herbs. During this time, there had been a stir in the sect for some reason. They had begun selecting outstanding disciples from various branches, but no one knew the purpose of it. One thing that was certain was that there would be benefits involved. Many senior and branch masters would be accompanying them, so the opportunity was rare, and many people were striving for it. Miao Tinglian came to ask him if he wanted to participate, but Jiang Hao politely declined. He didn't believe this kind of thing was without danger. So, he continued to cultivate spirit herbs. In some time, he would be able to advance to the middle stage of the return to the Void Realm. There was no more significant benefit than this. One day, Jiang Hao finally saw the person he wanted to meet. It was junior brother Han Ming. He looked as young as he did at 18, but his aura had undergone a tremendous transformation. With his tall and slender body, he exuded a formidable aura when wielding a sword. His eyes shone brilliantly. He was not at the early stage of the Golden Core realm. "You're truly amazing," Jiang Hao said in praise. 16 years ago, when Han Ming had just started, he was at the early stage of the Foundation Establishment realm. Now, he had quietly grown into a formidable Golden Core realm cultivator. Time was indeed a delicate blade that had sculpted Han Ming into such an outstanding individual. "Senior brother Jiang, we meet again," Han Ming said politely. "Junior brother, you're too polite. It's an honor to meet you after your advancement." Jiang Hao smiled. Han Ming didn't beat around the bush and stated his intention. "I'd like to challenge you, senior brother Jiang." Chapter 667, Chapter 667, Beaten to a Pulp. Chapter 667, Beaten to a Pulp. Inside the courtyard of the Candlelight Pill Pavilion, a young man sat at the highest spot. He was explaining the path of alchemy and occasionally touched upon the path of cultivation. The listeners gathered below were mostly disciples from various branches. Their cultivation realms were decent, but their talents were not that exceptional. To make further progress, they needed someone to teach them diligently. The senior disciple before them was undoubtedly doing just that. "Junior sister Xiaolan, although your aura is stable, you've been unable to make a breakthrough for a while. It's not due to your lack of talent, but because there is a hidden problem within you." As he spoke, he took out a pill and handed it to her. "Take this and consume it. It won't be long before you can attempt a breakthrough. However, you must be extremely cautious. Even if someone guides you through the process, success in cultivation relies entirely on the individual. Don't rush it." The woman who had been listening below was shocked. She accepted the pill and expressed her gratitude. As the lecture came to an end, the audience reluctantly departed. The man seated at the top, who had been gentle and warm, now appeared indifferent. It was as though nothing could stir his emotions. "How is the investigation going?" he suddenly asked. "We haven't found anything concrete, but his behavior does match." A man appeared in the corner of the courtyard. "We spread the information about the Bloodwish path. Initially, I merely intended to use him as a scapegoat, but he seems to have reversed the roles. He made more people willingly sacrifice their blood for him. For a moment, I couldn't comprehend whether he was a practitioner of the Bloodwish path or not. There is also another force working in the background, clearly leveraging this reputation. If it's him, then we need to be cautious," the man said in concern. "No matter what, his strength is real. If you want to devour him, senior brother Chen Chen, it won't be difficult." The man lurking in the corner of the courtyard said, "If he practices the Bloodwish path, he will be a great supplement for me. If he doesn't, he's still a delicious morsel. Do we continue the investigation?" "Let's continue. We'll see when he advances. If he does so in the next year or two, he's most likely a practitioner of the Bloodwish path. A very talented one at that. Then, we will need his assistance when the seniors of the sect go out. However, We must find a way to enter Devil's Den. We'll have to wait for the next sect mission. What do you plan to do with the blood pool, senior brother Chen Chen? Let's go to the northern region. We founded our own sect, so there's no need to stay in this place. The southern region appears calm on the surface, but there are hidden undercurrents. Okay, we will follow your orders, senior brother Chen Chen. If there's any change in Jiang Hao's cultivation realm soon, let me know. I will contact him, but the rest of you need to be patient. Understood. After the shadowy figure in the corner disappeared, Chen Chen finally looked up at the sky and let out a deep sigh. No one knew what he was thinking. At the Cliff of Broken Hearts, Jiang Hao readily accepted Han Ming's challenge. This duel was a long-awaited event, not only for Han Ming but also for Jiang Hao. After returning, he had been waiting for Han Ming to become a Golden Core Realm cultivator. Han Ming didn't disappoint. Senior brother Jiang, did you go out recently? Han Ming asked. Yes. As you suggested, I went out to hone my skills. However, the effect was minimal. It was nowhere near as good as what you've achieved, Jiang Hao said with a smile. He had no ill feelings toward Han Ming. Despite the constant challenges, Han Ming always acknowledged his defeat without any resentment. He had never made any underhanded moves. Han Ming was an excellent junior. Furthermore, his talent was extraordinary, and he had matured with age. He excelled in various fields. Han Ming sneered. Where do you want to have our duel? Let's go somewhere more isolated, Jiang Hao said. They quickly arrived near the wooden house. Here will do, Jiang Hao said. All right, I won't hold back. Han Ming firmly grasped the hilt of his sword. He had already pictured this many times, and this sword had been kept secret for a long time. Based on past experiences, his victory or defeat would likely be determined in the first move. Losing the first exchange would mean failure. Thus, he created a remarkable sword technique that would make Jiang Hao realize the danger of relying on luck. I'm going to attack, Han Ming said as a warning. Come on. Jiang Hao nodded. The half-moon blade was already in his hand. However, in the next moment, Jiang Hao narrowed his eyes. Han Ming's aura suddenly surged forward with the power of thunder. In that instant, he saw a breathtakingly brilliant sword technique. Clang! The sword and the blade clashed. In the blink of an eye, Han Ming appeared behind Jiang Hao. His sword was still in his hand, but his arm was dripping with blood. Jiang Hao's grip on his sword had resulted in a small crack. A few strands of hair had fallen from his head. Staring at the fallen hair, Jiang Hao was filled with shock and realized that he had been too serious in this fight. He had nearly struck too hard. Even though Jiang Hao was only in the middle stage of the Golden Core realm, if he had attacked too forcefully, it could have been extremely dangerous. Fortunately, the injury was minor. Han Ming coughed up a mouthful of blood. You're truly extraordinary, junior brother Han Ming. Jiang Hao turned around. Being considered for the position of a top disciple was no trivial matter. He was the most hard-working and talented person Jiang Hao had ever seen. Jiang Hao had no concept of how others performed, but Han Ming had grown under his watch. He had witnessed every stage of Han Ming's journey. Han Ming grasped the sword and looked at Jiang Hao in disbelief. Middle stage of the Golden Core realm? I just got lucky, Jiang Hao said modestly. Han Ming looked at him bitterly, but he quickly regained his determination. Then, he turned and left. Jiang Hao watched him silently. Han Ming didn't need his help. He was a person who could walk his own path. He had a bright future ahead of him. At that moment, Jiang Hao had officially reached the middle stage of the Golden Core realm. The next step was to see when Han Ming would advance to the middle stage of the Golden Core realm. Shaking his head, Jiang Hao went to the Spirit Herb Garden. After attending to his tasks, he inquired about Chu Chuan's whereabouts. It had been a while since he last paid attention to him, and it was time to check. Up on millimeter. Perhaps, in a few more years, he would be ready. Why are you looking for Chu Chuan today, senior brother? Asked Xiao Li in a hushed tone. I just want to check on him, Jiang Hao said. Is there something wrong? He was beaten to a pulp by Xiao Li this morning, said the spirit beast while munching on a carrot. Jiang Hao nodded. He wasn't surprised. However, when he saw Chu Chuan, he couldn't help but be astonished. At this moment, Chu Chuan lay on the bed. It seemed as though his bones were broken. He turned to Xiao Li and noticed she was looking outside with the spirit beast cradled to her chest. What happened to Chu Chuan? Jiang Hao asked. He said that you, master, don't have a lady. Xiao Li said you did have a senior sister by your side. Xiao Li was upset. They started arguing. And then, Chu Chuan suggested fighting to determine who was right. Then, this happened, said the spirit beast. At this point, Chu Chuan looked at Jiang Hao. He couldn't even move a finger. Jiang Hao was speechless. Chapter 668, Chapter 668, he would eventually leave the mountain. Chapter 668, he would eventually leave the mountain. Why are you at odds with Xiao Li? Jiang Hao used quite a bit of power to heal. Chu Chuan. It's nothing. Senior sister Xiao Li is too heavy-handed sometimes, said Chu Chuan softly. After all, the one who had used force was still present in the room. Jiang Hao shook his head. Let's go. Take a walk with me. What about me, senior brother? Xiao Li asked. It's lunchtime. Go eat something, Jiang Hao said to her. Xiao Li immediately ran to the cafeteria with the spirit beast. Bye, senior brother. Watching her run away, Jiang Hao smiled. Then, he stepped out of the room, and Chu Chuan followed closely behind. They walked to the mountaintop. Jiang Hao asked, How's your cultivation going? I went to the Devil's Den, and I'm about to reach the late stage of the Foundation Establishment realm, Chu Chuan said excitedly. Jiang Hao nodded. Indeed, Chu Chuan was on the verge of advancement. Within the next year or two, he should be able to successfully enter the late stage. It was quite impressive. He was only 22 at the moment. However, the gap between him and Chu Jie was still huge. Chu Jie was already at the Golden Core realm. Are you still practicing the 100 revolution of the heavenly note? Jiang Hao asked and looked down at the river below the mountain. Yes. Chu Chuan nodded. How does it feel? Jiang Hao turned to him. Huh. Chu Chuan was puzzled. There were no issues so far. I'll teach you a new cultivation method and a set of blade techniques, Jiang Hao said. After obtaining the freedom technique a few months ago, he had already understood how to cultivate it. He had also modified a small part of it without a worry for future deviations. After a while, Chu Chuan activated the freedom technique, and a gleam of light shone in his eyes. He was delighted. This technique was better than the 100 revolutions of the heavenly note and more suitable for him. How did you obtain it, senior brother? Don't ask too many questions. If someone asks, just say you found it yourself, Jiang Hao said. Understood. Chu Chuan nodded. This method is called the freedom technique. It's relatively safe to use, but still, be a little cautious, Jiang Hao said. Chu Chuan listened attentively. The freedom technique suited Chu Chuan but wasn't entirely perfect for him. Nevertheless, it was better than the 100 revolutions of the heavenly note. This might make it easier for him to catch up with Chu Jie. She was outstanding, not just in talent but also with powerful forces supporting her. It would be incredibly challenging for Chu Chuan to catch up by himself. Senior brother Jiang, what cultivation realm do you think Chu Jie is in now? Chu Chuan suddenly asked. Jiang Hao looked at him. Very high. How high? Chu Chuan asked. He was almost as tall as Jiang Hao now. He was full of spirit and vigor. He was in stark contrast to the dark kid Jiang Hao had seen before. Xiao Li wasn't even as tall as his shoulders. It was no wonder he felt confident and challenged Xiao Li sometimes. Jiang Hao didn't answer him. Just keep trying and aiming high. That's all for now. Let's go. I'll teach you the blade techniques. Jiang Hao headed toward an open space. Only Chu Chuan could learn both the freedom technique and the blade techniques at the same time. Lin Ji cultivated the techniques of the Bright Moon sect, and the treasure within him resonated with it. The freedom technique didn't suit him. The modified blade techniques also weren't suitable for Lin Ji's spiritual essence. They were more fitting for the indomitable Chu Chuan. Have you considered the consequences of getting involved in combat? Jiang Hao asked. I have. Chu Chuan nodded. What did you think about it? Jiang Hao asked. Chu Chuan hesitated. I've thought about success, and about failure. But I've never considered giving up. Jiang Hao looked at him and didn't say anything. He began instructing Chu Chuan in the modified blade techniques, which he split into 9 forms without naming them. He could only teach the basics and the first form. The rest needed further study. Chu Chuan wasn't a quick learner, but he remembered everything. Do I have to use a blade in the future? Jiang Hao shook his head. No. Use whatever you feel is comfortable for you. This is for your self-defense. Huh? Chu Chuan was puzzled. What do you mean, senior brother Jiang? Jiang Hao looked at him. If you want to follow in Chu Jie's footsteps, you can't stay in the Heavenly Note sect forever. This place will only limit your development. At some point in time, you'll have to leave the mountain. Chu Chuan was taken aback. He had always considered this place as his home and never thought of leaving. However, sometimes leaving was the only way forward. Don't worry too much about it for now. The 4 regions will be your stage, and you can always return to the Heavenly Note sect. Someday, you will make a name for yourself in all 4 regions, said Jiang Hao. Chu Chuan was the most likely to attract trouble. He might even be the first to leave the sect. His path couldn't be confined to the Heavenly Note sect, as it would hinder his growth. Jiang Hao turned and left. Chu Chuan hadn't fully processed everything he had heard, but it didn't bother him. He eventually left the mountain. It was inevitable. He understood that his world shouldn't be confined to the Heavenly Note sect but should flourish in all 4 regions. This was what made Chu Chuan different from Lin Ji. While the former was ambitious, the latter wished for a quiet life. As for Xiao Li and the spirit beast, they were carefree. The next day, at the entrance of the spirit herb garden, Cheng Chou informed Jiang Hao that senior brother Bu Yi was satisfied with the herbs and hoped for further cooperation in the future. Jiang Hao smiled. Are there any problems with your cultivation? He asked. Cheng Chou's talent was average, and his progress wasn't as fast as Chu Chuan's. He needed careful guidance. Yes, there are a few, Cheng Chou said earnestly. Later that day, Jiang Hao spent most of the time explaining problems in cultivation to Cheng Chou. He guided him from the afternoon till late at night. Don't rush it. Take it slow. It's crucial to steady your mind. Step by step, with a solid foundation, there is hope for you to reach the Golden Core realm, Jiang Hao said. I will heed all your instructions, senior brother Jiang, said Cheng Chou gratefully. For others, reaching the Golden Core realm was within easy reach, but for him, it was a distant dream. However, it seemed like he really had a chance now. It was all thanks to the guidance that Jiang Hao had provided him with. Jiang Hao just shook his head. It was a minor matter to him. The other person had helped him quite a bit. With that, Jiang Hao returned to the courtyard after spending more peaceful months than he had anticipated. Sitting under the peach tree, he took out the tranquil heart fruits. He was deep in thought. I should find a time to contact Feng Hua. It's been so long. She probably wants to see me. But I can't be hasty. I have to wait for Hong Yuye. Feng Hua would play mind games with him, and he lacked the knowledge of formations to defend himself without Hong Yuye around. It required a considerable amount of energy, especially when the person kept stalling for time. If he was discovered, it would be a disaster. Since he wanted to hurt the person, he couldn't reveal his weaknesses. There was no rush. He could focus on selling talismans to earn spirit stones during this time. Jiang Hao took out his half-moon blade. It already had a crack on it. I've lost a few thousand spirit stones already. Jiang Hao sighed. It was time for a new half-moon blade. The next day, Jiang Hao arrived at the marketplace, set up his stall, and waited for buyers. After a while, he saw a man standing approach his stall. The man looked skeptical. It was senior brother Duan Guan. Jiang Hao was speechless. This senior had a lot of spirit stones, but he was often rude to Jiang Hao. Chapter 669. Chapter 669. Wait 100 years. If 100 years isn't enough, 200 would be. Chapter 669. Wait 100 years. If 100 years isn't enough, 200 would be. Duan Guan looked at the talismans on Jiang Hao's stall. You have the heavenly sword talismans too? Yes. Jiang Hao nodded. Are there any other talismans? Duan Guan asked. For now, I don't have any at the same level. Jiang Hao shook his head. He hadn't learned them yet. However, it wouldn't be difficult for him. He had learned from Mi Lingyu for a long time, and these talismans wouldn't pose a challenge for him. You're wasting your talent, Duan Guan said coldly. You think you have some talent, but you don't focus on honing your skills. Sooner or later, you will find it difficult to progress in talisman making. By then, you won't even be able to set up a stall. Jiang Hao remained calm. He wanted to see what more this senior would say. However, Duan Guan had already left. He took away all the talismans and left behind 600 spirit stones. Senior brother Duan Guan was indeed rarely wealthy. Every time he met Jiang Hao, he would buy everything that was in his stall. Later, he went to look at a blade. It was long, jet black, and had a slight curve. It could cut through anything effortlessly. It was made of a material that could corrode flesh and blood. How much is this blade? Jiang Hao liked it very much. 7,000 spirit stones, said the stall owner. He was a middle-aged man. The material is exceptional. If it weren't for the fact that the forging could have been better, it would cost more. Jiang Hao nodded in agreement. It was a decent blade but was only at the golden core realm. He felt that 7,000 for it was too expensive. After bargaining for half a day, they settled at 6,700 spirit stones. Jiang Hao sighed. He still had a long way to go in the golden core realm, and it wouldn't hurt to have a good weapon. Judging by its hardness, it could rival even treasures at a higher realm. The stall owner warned him that the blade could be wiped with cloth but shouldn't be touched with bare hands. Jiang Hao didn't mind. This level of power wouldn't affect him. After that, he bought some tea. He deliberately bought a more expensive variety of it. He chose the ancient spirit tea, which cost him 5,000 spirit stones. Now, he only had 6,876 spirit stones left. He felt that spirit stones weren't easy to come by and was reluctant to spend more. He also realized that he had run out of the silver moon petals. He bought 2 packs, which cost him 2,000 spirit stones. With that, he returned to his house. He had less than 5,000 spirit stones left, and he needed to earn more as soon as possible. The days of having over 10,000 spirit stones seemed so far away. He couldn't believe he had actually had that many spirit stones before. I thought senior sister Ming Yi would come to visit, but it seems I won't see her for a while. The only thing that remained was a visit from senior sister Ming Yi. But she didn't come. He could only put it aside for now. Now, I only have to wait for Hong Yuye. Before she arrived, he wanted to improve his cultivation realm. The outside world would likely be in turmoil. The disciples from Clear Sky School were coming, as were those from the Mountain Sea Sword sect. The Grand Earth Emperor was about to appear. It was sure to cause a storm. The Heavenly Note sect was remote enough not to be affected. That was exactly what Jiang Hao wanted. At this moment, the stone tablet suddenly vibrated. A gathering? He looked at it. It wasn't a call for gathering. Instead, it was information about Yang Shong from the Sunset Immortal sect. I should just accept it. I can look at the details slowly. Jiang Hao didn't expect the message to reveal her true identity, but having this information was useful. However, the content of the message surprised him. The first sentence was, "One of the avatars of Feng Hua." It seems that this information is more detailed than the previous one. Jiang Hao couldn't help but be amazed. When investigating Feng Hua earlier, they hadn't found this particular avatar. Looking at the information, Jiang Hao was quite surprised. The information revealed that Yang Shong was perfect. As one of the top disciples of Sunset Immortal sect, she was exceptionally talented. She was already in the middle stage of the return to Void Realm at just 200 years old. She was considered a remarkable genius. Furthermore, she was friendly and kept a low profile. The elders and seniors adored and admired her. There was nothing negative about her in the information. She had never harmed anyone, and she never had conflicts with others. Her favorite things were provided generously by the sect. However, she obtained everything through her own abilities and was admired by everyone. Even though Jiang Hao hadn't met her in person, there were legends about her throughout the sect. Some even boldly claimed that Yang Shong might compete for the position of the next sect master. The information was limited, but it mentioned Feng Hua's concern for this particular avatar. It wasn't as detailed as the information on Shangguan Qingsu. They probably were from different sources. There were mentions of protective spells around her, both within and outside the sect. There were also some life-saving treasures at her disposal. These details are sufficient. However, her cultivation realm is higher than I expected. It's troublesome. If it were convenient, he'd prefer to visit her himself, but it wasn't possible for him right now. A regular middle-stage return to Void Realm cultivator might be able to hide, but this was Feng Hua he was talking about. She wasn't an ordinary return to Void Realm cultivator. It was uncertain whether he could get close to her. I can only ask Gui for help in delivering a message. He had an idea. It might not be possible for him to visit the sect and pass on a message, but there were others in the southern region who could do it. The problem now was to come up with a way to ask for Gui's help. Gui was still after Yin Zichen. If he could find him for her, perhaps he could trade with her. But getting in touch with the Mountain Sea Sword sect isn't that easy. He could only wait for a proper opportunity. Perhaps there was a way to contact them. In the following days, Jiang Hao returned to his usual calm, but it seemed that the grand competition within the sect had reopened. Many people were vying for opportunities. News also quickly spread that the Black Heaven sect was about to come across something big, and the sect wanted a piece of the pie. This surprised Jiang Hao, but he didn't pay it much mind. He didn't need any opportunities. One day, Jiang Hao received a communication talisman to meet his master. There was something his master wanted to ask him. Shortly after, Jiang Hao reached Ku Wu Chang's courtyard. This time, there is a fixed list of people for the visit to the Black Heaven sect, and your name is on it. However, it's difficult to take you out of the sect because of your status in the Law Enforcement Hall. Ku Wu Chang looked at Jiang Hao. If you want to go, I can help you figure something out. I'll be accompanying you on the journey anyway. Jiang Hao lowered his head and didn't know how to answer for a moment. He didn't want to go. It was too dangerous. There were people who wanted to kill him, and more importantly, the appearance of the Grand Earth Emperor would undoubtedly bring trouble. A slight slip could lead to a disaster. You don't want to go? Ku Wu Chang asked. Jiang Hao nodded. I'm sorry to disappoint you, Master. It's all right. Ku Wu Chang shook his head and didn't say anything. Jiang Hao left. He looked back at his master's house and sighed. His master was very kind to him, but going outside was dangerous for him. No one within the sect harmed him, and he could peacefully manage the spirit herb garden. That was enough for him. In 10 or 100 years, all troubles would disappear. People and their hatred toward him would fade away. Even if 100 years wasn't enough, 200 years would do it. The people who hated him would eventually let go of their grudge. Chapter 670. Chapter 670. The Heavenly Note Sect should explain themselves. Chapter 670. The Heavenly Note Sect should explain themselves. Back at the Spirit Herb Garden, Jiang Hao continued to tend to spirit herbs peacefully. He didn't need to worry about much nowadays. He just needed to handle changes that occurred in the garden, and nothing more. This included occasional friction in collaboration between the spirit herb gardens from other branches and outstanding payments by disciples. Although it wasn't as bad as before, there were still some issues. For now, Cheng Cho was handling them, and they weren't serious enough for Jiang Hao to get involved. One inner sect disciple was enough to take charge of the spirit herb garden. Thankfully, Cheng Cho didn't contend with him. Time passed, and half a month later, in mid-June, Jiang Hao heard news that the sect master had gone on an expedition and returned, but her condition didn't seem to be great. They also brought back some people, but Jiang Hao didn't know who they were. This news caught Jiang Hao's attention, but since Liu Xingchen wasn't around, he couldn't find out more. He decided to visit the Lawless Tower for more information. It's been a while since I visited Zhuang Yuzhen and the others. The sect kept Zhuang Yuzhen because of the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. He might still be able to contact Senior Dan Yuan. However, because he refused to divulge who had sent him, he remained stuck on the 5th floor. Heavenly King Hai Luo chose to stay on the 5th floor. As for Nangong Yu, her intentions were uncertain. In the afternoon, Jiang Hao arrived at the Lawless Tower. Unfortunately, he didn't encounter any familiar seniors who could tell him about the people brought back. Once he reached the 5th floor, he heard Nangong Yu's voice. "Heavenly King, when will your master come? It's been months. Isn't he going to question you anymore?" she asked. "Ridiculous. Since when did this king need a master?" "Disciple Zhuang, when will Heavenly King Hai Luo's master come and visit?" Nangong Yu asked. "He'll come when he remembers us," Zhuang Yuzhen said. Zhuang Yuzhen had some experience with this matter. When Jiang Hao entered the room, he thought that these three seniors seemed to be getting along well. They had been talking, but as soon as Jiang Hao entered, they all fell silent. Nangong Yu appeared nervous. She wasn't sure why she felt frightened by this person. It must be the influence of the other two. In the past, no matter who came, Heavenly King Hai Luo always responded with a stinky attitude as though he was invincible. But when this person appeared in front of him, his whole demeanor changed. "It's been too long," said Jiang Hao and bowed politely. These people were seniors, after all. It was best to be polite to them. "Indeed," Zhuang Yuzhen said. "I have a question I want to ask you," Nangong Yu immediately said. "In return, I'll tell you a secret." Jiang Hao looked at her. He wasn't interested in this secret. It could bring trouble. His current lifestyle suited him just fine. 100 more years with such peace would be perfect. Once he got involved in secrets, trouble would come knocking one after the other. "Why aren't you saying anything? If you want to know something, you can ask or request something," Nangong Yu said. She was slightly irritated when she saw Jiang Hao's indifferent face. "Senior, if you have any questions, you can ask Senior Sister Yinshaw. She knows everything," Jiang Hao replied helplessly. He knew what Nangong Yu wanted to know, and Senior Sister Yinshaw was the right person to provide that information. "No. She can't speak about it. She can't reveal anything to anyone," Nangong Yu said. Jiang Hao was surprised. That must be the reason why she had been hounding him with the question relentlessly. But if Senior Sister Yinshaw couldn't say anything, then revealing the secret about what the Saint Bandits did would be counterproductive. Others might not know as much about the Saint Bandits and their goal, but this person definitely did. It was better not to mention anything about Heaven Lock. "I don't understand. A secret is no longer a secret if you don't say it out loud. Who knows if it's true or not? Just say it outright," Heavenly King Hai Luo said dismissively. "Is it still a secret if you say it out loud?" Nangong Yu asked in disdain. "You are ignorant," Heavenly King Hai Luo said. Nangong Yu was speechless. Jiang Hao didn't pay much attention to their bickering. Instead, he approached Zhuang Yuzhen and asked if anything had happened at the Lawless Tower lately. Zhuang Yuzhen was always calm and calculative. He must have kept an eye on things. "I heard that someone from the Heavenly Tower was captured, and they're likely on one of the upper floors right now," Zhuang Yuzhen said as he pointed toward the ceiling. Jiang Hao was surprised. It was someone from the Heavenly Tower, but he didn't ask further. He asked about the heavenly fragrance Dao flower and how Zhuang Yuzhen had learned about it. From an anonymous person, Zhuang Yuzhen said. His repose was the same as before. Jiang Hao didn't ask further. He knew that the information had no impact on him, but Hong Yuye would take action. He didn't mention anything about Chu Zhong. After so many years in the tower, Zhuang Yuzhen seemed to have settled down and no longer cared about it. As for his cultivation realm, he remained at the early stage of the primordial spirit realm. Heavenly King Hai Luo was still in the late stage of the same realm. Nangong Yu had fallen to the early stage of the primordial spirit realm as well. It seemed that Heavenly King Hai Luo had the best control over his cultivation out of the three. "We're currently facing a problem," Zhuang Yuzhen suddenly said. "What happened?" Jiang Hao asked. He hadn't heard any news about these people lately. Senior Sister Yinshaw and the others couldn't inform him about it, and Liu Xingchen was nowhere to be seen. "We are at an impasse. This situation doesn't benefit anyone. So, your people have made a suggestion," Zhuang Yuzhen said earnestly. "They've proposed a method for restoring our cultivation. It involves going out every month to teach disciples or help the disciple who seeks guidance. The number of problems we solve will correspond to how much we can improve our cultivation as a reward." "How is that calculated?" Jiang Hao asked. "The people of the Lawless Tower have the final say," Heavenly King Hai Luo said with a sneer. Jiang Hao didn't find it surprising. The Heavenly Note sect was always like this. Zhuang Yuzhen and the others would make contributions, and the sect would decide how much to reward them based on their mood. "Have you agreed to this?" Jiang Hao asked. "Not yet, but we'll probably agree in the future," Zhuang Yuzhen said. "You'll agree? The Heavenly Note sect truly doesn't regard us as human beings. They keep exploiting us. When we become worthless, we'll be disposed of," Nangong Yu said coldly. Jiang Hao nodded in agreement. She was right. The Heaven Note sect constantly exploited the captives in the Lawless Tower. When they've lost their cultivation realms, they were sent to the mines to work. After they advanced, they were once again sent to the Lawless Tower. It was a vicious cycle. Zhuang Yuzhen paid no attention to Nangong Yu. He believed that she would understand in the future. "If you reveal everything you know, the Heavenly Note sect might consider contacting the Divine Corpse sect for you," Jiang Hao said. "And then?" Zhuang Yuzhen shook his head and chuckled. "What would I, as a primordial spirit realm cultivator, do when I return?" Jiang Hao frowned. With his corpse heart, it wouldn't be difficult for him to restore his cultivation realm, unless he knew that his corpse heart was already lost. With a sigh, Jiang Hao decided not to ask any more questions and got up to leave. "Wait," Nangong Yu hurriedly said. "Are you practicing the Blood Wish path? I know a secret about the Blood Wish path." Jiang Hao still didn't stop. Nangong Yu was anxious. "Blood pool. The Heavenly Note sect has a blood pool." Chapter 671, Chapter 671, Maybe Feng Hua 1IT find it bitter. Chapter 671, Maybe Feng Hua 1IT find it bitter. Nangong Yu thought that after mentioning the blood pool, Jiang Hao would at least pause and ask her about it. However, he didn't stop at all. He simply left. He turned a deaf ear to her words. This surprised and frustrated her and left her at a loss for words. Jiang Hao had already disappeared from her sight. Moreover, within this tower that suppressed almost everything, sounds couldn't travel too far. "Why didn't he stop and ask me about it?" Nangong Yu asked. "Why would he stop?" asked Hai Luo. "Isn't he curious?" Nangong Yu asked. "I told you. A secret is only useful when revealed. If you don't hint at it, he won't be interested. You should have spoken up earlier. Now, you'll have to wait for a few months till he visits again." The Heavenly King laughed. "If your luck is bad, you might have to wait for years." Nangong Yu was speechless. How could this be? Saying a secret out loud would make oneself worthless? According to the Heavenly King, if she didn't speak up soon, she might not even have the chance to speak again. After leaving the Lawless Tower, Jiang Hao sighed. Blood pool? He had no idea what that was. It did remind him of someone, though. It reminded him of the blood demon in Liu Xingchen's body. However, the blood pool was probably related to the Blood Wish path and nothing else. After all, Nangong Yu had just mentioned it a moment before. Knowing more just complicates everything. For now, he couldn't do much. Whether it was Chen Chen or the blood pool, he couldn't easily confront them. Who could he even turn to for advice? Louis Zinschen had changed due to possession. With his current state and the sudden appearance of the blood pool, Jiang Hao felt he was going to face some trouble in the future. When he returned to his courtyard, he saw the spirit beast hanging from the peach tree. It was bruised and swollen. Xiao Li was asleep at the table. He also noticed a young woman in a red and white gown sitting across from her. She was sipping tea and gazing at Xiao Li. Jiang Hao didn't know what was going through her mind. He sighed. He hadn't expected Xiao Li to meet Hong Yuye. He couldn't help but worry that she might have said something inappropriate again. He was anxious but didn't know if he should say anything. "Did you give the pearl to Xiao Li?" Hong Yuye asked as she turned to look at him. "It seemed to suit Xiao Li quite well, so I gave it to her. Temporarily," Jiang Hao said. The truth was that the pearl belonged to Xiao Li. Hong Yuye chuckled. "Have you contacted Feng Hua?" "Not yet. My cultivation realm is still low, and I need your help," Jiang Hao said honestly. "What's your current cultivation realm?" "Middle stage of the Golden Core realm," Jiang Hao said. "I see you're going to advance soon," Hong Yuye said. "I was just lucky," Jiang Hao said. "Ha ha ha," Hong Yuye glanced at the man in front of her. "Let's get started then." Jiang Hao didn't hesitate and set up the formation. He then brought a chair and assumed the appearance of a scholarly young man. Hong Yuye laughed. "It seems you do care about your appearance." "It's just to put up a convincing performance as smiling San Sheng," said Jiang Hao sheepishly. "Do you have a strong desire for revenge?" Hong Yuye asked. Jiang Hao hesitated for a moment and then shook his head. "My strength and power are too low, so I don't really care for revenge." Hong Yuye gazed at the man in front of her but remained silent. Jiang Hao had everything ready and activated the formation. Soon, a black figure appeared. It was shrouded in a black robe and was relatively short in stature. As soon as the figure appeared, Jiang Hao smiled. "Feng Hua, it's been too long." "What do you mean?" Feng Hua asked. Her voice sounded like a man's. "Nothing." Jiang Hao chuckled. "Did you go overseas?" Feng Hua asked. "Yes," Jiang Hao said. "Have you found out anything?" Feng Hua asked. "Naturally. Do you know the most important thing that I discovered?" Jiang Hao smiled. "Without a doubt, you found what you wanted," Feng Hua said with a smile. "That's right. I must thank you for this. If you hadn't provided me with this information, I wouldn't have gained much on this journey." Jiang Hao opened his fan and gently fanned himself. "It's nothing. I'm happy to assist a fellow disciple," Feng Hua said politely. "By the way, I've acquired something remarkable on this trip that I'd like to share with you," Jiang Hao said as he took out a fruit. It was the fruit from the tranquil fruit tree. It's said to be an extremely expensive fruit, and I had to go to great lengths to obtain it. In the end, I managed to bring the whole tree back, said Jiang Hao as he took a bite. However, before Feng Hua could respond, Jiang Hao put the fruit in his mouth. "By the way, did I mention it to you last time? I thought I had eaten them all, but when I checked, there were actually 3 left. Unfortunately, my friend didn't eat them, so I had to eat them myself. It might not be too bitter for you, Ms. Feng Hua." Feng Hua smiled. "My friend, you got it wrong." "Oh, right. Thanks for the reminder," Jiang Hao said. After finishing one, he asked Feng Hua, "Do you want one?" "Oh, wait, you can't have one." Jiang Hao continued to eat the second one. "This is the last one. I'm going to eat it." Jiang Hao looked at the other person in front of him and lifted the fruit to his mouth. However, he took it out again. "Maybe I should just keep it," Jiang Hao said. But before the other person could respond, he hurriedly put it in his mouth. He spit it out in disgust. "These taste terrible." "Thankfully, it's all gone now." Feng Hua watched him. "Do you have any more questions, disciple? If not, I wish us another pleasant cooperation as we did last time." "I don't have any." Jiang Hao smiled. "Our cooperation has been pleasant. By the way, I have one more thing to say to you." "What is it?" Feng Hua curiously asked. "This counts as the second gift. Look forward to the third one." It will definitely be your favorite, Jiang Hao said with a smile as he closed his fan. Then, he deactivated the formation. At the Sunset Immortal Sect, on a mountain peak surrounded by spiritual energy, a woman in a rainbow-colored dress sat at the edge of the mountain. She gazed at the rugged mountains ahead with a thoughtful expression. She seemed lost in thought. Senior Sister Yang. A young woman landed next to her and greeted her respectfully. The woman snapped out of her reverie and looked at her junior with a smile. "Why did you come here, Junior Sister Louis? I received a message that said you might be heading to the Black Heaven sect soon, and I thought of accompanying you. They say there might be a significant opportunity at the Black Heaven sect, and the elders don't want you to miss it," Junior Sister Louis said. "The Black Heaven sect? That's fine. Many people are going there, right?" Yang Shong asked. "Yes. Almost all the major sects are sending their representatives. Even the demonic sects are participating." Demonic sects? The Heavenly Note sect. We have quite a bit of history with them. There might be some discussions. In that case, let's go and see, Yang Shong said. Chapter 672, Chapter 672, Don't you want this era to belong to you? Chapter 672, Don't you want this era to belong to you? Near the Black Heaven sect, Princess Baizhu, accompanied by Qiao Yi, continued their journey toward the Black Heaven sect. "Princess, how can you be sure that person is in the Black Heaven sect?" Qiao Yi asked. "I'm not certain, but exploring it might be a good idea. I heard there are opportunities there, and you might benefit from it as well. As for the people from the Mountain Sea Sword sect, there's no need for us to search for them. They'll come to the Black Heaven sect themselves," Baizhu said with a smile. Qiao Yi didn't question her words. So far, the princess hadn't shown her true power, but the information she received was always accurate. However, she still wanted to see for herself what it was like when the princess was in action. Before they could discuss further, Qiao Yi brought up another matter. "Prince Baiyu was asking when you would be returning to the palace. Why is my second brother suddenly looking for me?" Baizhu was puzzled. "He probably thinks Imperial City is safer now, especially after the purges that took place recently," Qiao Yi said. "During those events, there were traitors, and many people were implicated. Numerous individuals were thrown into jail, and most of them had their cultivation stripped off and were exiled. With the sudden reduction in the number of people, various regions became chaotic. Some were even trying to create conflict. The princess staying out of the city was somewhat dangerous, especially considering that she was an ordinary person. Baizhu was a typical example of such a person. She was older and couldn't even find a husband. It's because of the recent Great Purge that I don't want to go back. The stench of blood is too heavy there." Baizhu shook her head. "You can tell him that we're on a sightseeing trip and will return in some time. Don't let him worry too much." Qiao Yi could only nod her head. She couldn't do much when it came to the princess. Fortunately, this time, she was accompanying the princess. In the past, she wandered around on her own. Suddenly, Baizhu stopped and looked to the side. Qiao Yi was about to speak, but they saw several flying swords appear. Each sword emitted a chilling aura that sent shivers down one's spine. Mountain Sea Sword Sect. Baizhu was surprised. She hadn't seen members of this sect so far. The north and south were very far apart, and with her cultivation realm, she couldn't travel far. All these people are extraordinary. Qiao Yi could sense their power. "Let's follow them and find out what's going on with Yin Zichen," Baizhu said with interest. Finally, she could find out more about the situation. "Are you going to ask them?" Qiao Yi was a little puzzled. "Of course not. Let's see where they're headed. We'll follow them and then make contact with one or two of them to ask about it. It's easier for them to answer with fewer people around," Baizhu said with a smile. Qiao Yi nodded. After talking with Feng Hua, Jiang Hao tidied up his surroundings. He collected the chair and the formation, and he transformed back into his normal appearance. He stored the fan in his storage treasure. "Sister-in-law." As Jiang Hao was about to explain everything to Hong Yuye, Xiao Li suddenly woke up. She was groggy. This surprised Jiang Hao, and he was taken aback. Xiao Li had a brother and sister-in-law at her parents' place, said Jiang Hao hurriedly. Hong Yuye raised an eyebrow. Her gaze shifted from Xiao Li to Jiang Hao. What is her brother called? Does her sister-in-law treat her well? Well, I don't know much about that, Jiang Hao said in a hushed tone. Xiao Li's family matters are private, and don't get involved too much. Hong Yuye was calm. Jiang Hao didn't know what she might be thinking. The Grand Earth Emperor is about to appear, she suddenly said. In the Black Heaven sect? Jiang Hao asked. He had only speculated before, but now that Hong Yuye had spoken, it meant that the Grand Earth Emperor was undoubtedly going to make an appearance. Aren't you going to check it out? Hong Yuye asked. It's too dangerous. Jiang Hao shook his head. Where on earth is safe for you? Hong Yuye asked while rising from her seat and heading to the corner. She pulled out the cracked half-moon blade he had impaled there in the corner. The question had been on Jiang Hao's mind for a long time. Where on earth was safe for him? It seemed that there was no safe place for him. The 4 regions and the overseas regions each had their own challenges. He had been to the east, traveled overseas, and finally felt that the Heavenly Note sect was where he most wanted to stay. Although there were dangers here, he had the strength to defend himself. He thought about it for a long time. The Heavenly Note sect is much safer. Are you planning to hide here your whole life? Hong Yuye put away the sword. Jiang Hao lowered his head. I still have a very low cultivation realm. I haven't thought that far ahead. He had been on the path to become stronger, avoid danger, and solve crises. He hadn't thought much about the future because the present was what mattered most. After a long silence, Hong Yuye asked Jiang Hao to carry Xiao Li away on his back. Jiang Hao carried Xiao Li and walked to her house. Hong Yuye walked alongside him. Senior, what will happen when the Grand Earth Emperor appears? How would that compare to the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment? Jiang Hao asked on the way. There's no comparison. The current Grand Earth Emperor will be different from the previous ones. Hong Yuye shook her head. Jiang Hao understood that the commotion caused by the Grand Earth Emperor might not be as loud as the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment, but the event would be less susceptible to attacks. But the Grand Earth Emperor is associated with something, Hong Yuye said. The Human Emperor sword? Jiang Hao asked. The Shenyuan sword was the weapon of the previous Human Emperor. The 9 Nether of the fallen Immortal Clan and the Saint Bandits of the Heavenly Spirit Tribe had both lost to the Human Emperor. You don't use a sword? Hong Yuye asked. Only occasionally, Jiang Hao said. He had the primordial heavenly blade, so he didn't really need to be interested in any other sword. Besides, he couldn't control high-level swords. Hong Yuye walked alongside him. They continued down the path by the river. Hold on to the Shenyuan sword, and you might leave a mark on this era. Hong Yuye turned to the person beside her. Jiang Hao shook his head. He walked lightly so as not to wake Xiao Li on his back. I don't need to leave a mark on this era. The Human Emperor represents that era. It's his time, Hong Yuye said seriously. Don't you want this time to remember you? I have no such ambitions, Jiang Hao said without hesitation. Hong Yuye smiled. When I was your age, my ambitions almost reached the heavens. You had extraordinary talent, while I'm just an ordinary inner disciple of the sect. I can't compare to you, Jiang Hao said respectfully. Is that so? Hong Yuye said plainly. The two fell silent and continued on their journey. They moved away from the river. Xiao Li's house was still some distance away from their current location. Aren't you worried about being seen? Jiang Hao asked. Hong Yuye looked at him but didn't say anything. She appeared skeptical of the question. How old is Xiao Li? Hong Yuye suddenly asked. 23, Jiang Hao said. If you go by her parents' words and consider her age in human years, she's around 23. In all these years, she hasn't grown at all, Hong Yuye said as she gazed at Xiao Li on Jiang Hao's back. That's true. Her weight, height, and mental state haven't changed. Jiang Hao nodded. He occasionally checked on her and had also asked the spirit beast about it. Over a decade spent with Xiao Li seemed like the blink of an eye. Xiao Li was truly a member of the Dragon Clan. At the Lawless Tower, Yin Shuo looked at the 2 prisoners in front of her in confusion. One appeared to be elderly and was clearly a formidable figure from the heavenly tower. The other, in his 30s, was not found in their records. Who is this person? Yinsha asked. I don't know, said a fellow sect member beside her. According to the information, it seems his surname is Yin, but for more details, we'd need you to investigate, Senior Sister Yinsha. Yinsha inspected them for a moment. She then frowned. He's not human. Like Nangong Yu, he belongs to the heavenly spirit tribe. Chapter 673, The Blood Wish Alchemical Path. Chapter 673, The Blood Wish Alchemical Path. When they reached the jujube tree, Jiang Hao tried one. It was sweet, which meant that it had been well taken care of. The jujube tree belonged to Xiao Li's family, and Cheng Chou had brought it back for her. It had been well cared for, and Xiao Li, who was a glutton, never ate them all at once. You haven't eaten these before? Hong Yuye asked. After placing Xiao Li back in her room, they sat under the tree. No. Jiang Hao shook his head. He rarely visited Xiao Li, and it was usually the spirit beast who kept her company. Which form of the heavenly blade are you at? Hong Yuye stood beneath the tree and looked up at the moon. The fourth form, Jiang Hao said. The fifth form was still elusive. It was difficult to learn and required further study. After mastering the no-regrets technique, he would need to move on to the fifth form. Shenyuan's sword is about to appear. What do you think will happen if someone else obtains it? Jiang Hao asked. Such extraordinary items could be powerful when used wisely but devastating if misused. The sword contained the sword intent of the human emperor, and its power was unimaginable. It won't matter. Hong Yuye looked at Jiang Hao. The human emperor was recognized by the heavens, the human race, and many other races. Even his enemies respected him. His sword can't be used by others. Even if someone tries to use it, they won't be able to do it at all. Those who can use that sword are recognized by the sword itself. Suddenly, Hong Yuye's face turned serious. If you were the Grand Earth Emperor, would you use the sword of the human emperor? Maybe, Jiang Hao said. Do you think you'd be matching the sword, or the sword matching you? Hong Yuye asked. The sword only became the sword of the human emperor because of that person, not because anyone could use it. For Jiang Hao, none of that really mattered. He shook his head. I've never thought about these things, but it's better to use the sword. Since it is powerful, it would be a pity not to use it. Then, what about the thing you said before? To wear the crown, one must bear the weight. Hong Yuye asked. It was clear she wanted to know why Jiang Hao was concerned about the sword's power even though he had the strength to use it. Jiang Hao lowered his head. There are some things I absolutely don't want to do. He didn't want to neglect his responsibilities in exchange for power. That was a line he didn't want to cross. Many things needed to be done, and Jiang Hao knew that he couldn't do them. It wasn't an easy path, but he respected people who could achieve difficult things. He didn't want to be a hindrance to them. If it was possible, he would try to help them instead. So, even if the Shenyuan sword was placed before him, he wouldn't try to use it. Hong Yuye looked at Jiang Hao. Finally, she took a bite of a white jujube. It's not as sweet as the peaches. Jiang Hao, on the other hand, felt that they were similar in taste. Hong Yuye glanced at Jiang Hao, and her figure began to fade. The Shenyuan sword is about to appear and needs the core array of the burning immortal formation. As her words faded away, Hong Yuye completely disappeared. Jiang Hao breathed a sigh of relief. As for his fourth half-moon blade, he no longer cared. Every time he changed blades, he had to deal with them disappearing with. Hong Yuye. He glanced back at Xiao Li's residence and left. On the way, he thought about Hong Yuye's words. It seemed that the Shenyuan sword wasn't as easy to obtain as he thought. It required the core formation runes of the burning immortal formation. Only one person had come across such a formation. That was Xing from the gathering. Xing received information about the human emperor's sword at the secret location and also encountered that formation. It seems that the two are indeed closely related. I wonder if the secret location has any connection to the fallen immortal clan. Xing has never talked about the origins of the secret location, but from his words, it seems that the Bright Moon sect may not be aware of it anyway. Jiang Hao doesn't know how the burning immortal formation could be connected to the Shenyuan sword. While he was still thinking, he sensed a wave of blood-red aura. A blood wish path aura? In an instant, he sensed the direction it was coming from. They're not hiding. They're coming straight toward me. There's no murderous intent, so it doesn't seem like they want to harm me. Finally, a young man approached him with a friendly smile. Jiang Hao didn't hesitate and used the daily appraisal ability. Those who used the blood wish path were often dangerous and shouldn't be underestimated. After reading the feedback, Jiang Hao was surprised. It was really senior brother Chen Chen. Whether he practiced the blood wish path or not, he would become a part of Chen Chen's breakthrough. Moreover, Chen Chen wanted to create the blood wish alchemical path, and it would involve sacrificing all those he cared about. Many thoughts raced through Jiang Hao's mind. By this time, Chen Chen had already reached in front of him. Junior brother, Chen Chen said with a smile. Jiang Hao pretended to be puzzled. I don't think I know you, senior brother. This person posed a threat, but he was unsure of how to resolve it at the moment. He couldn't make a move here. He would have to do that in Devil's Den. Before Chen Chen found the blood pool, he needed to get there first. To obtain information about the blood pool, he needed to go to the Lawless Tower once again. Nangong, you had mentioned it before. This reminded him of Yin Wei, and he was unsure whether Chen Chen was connected to Yin Wei in some way. If that was true, the trouble would be even greater than he had anticipated. The blood wish path had been convenient for Jiang Hao till now, but he hadn't expected to attract such trouble so quickly. The root cause of everything was probably the blood pool, but he didn't know what kind of blood pool had given Chen Chen the confidence to act so boldly and decide to massacre people within the sect. Chen Chen smiled. I am Chen Chen from the Candlelight Pill Pavilion. Jiang Hao bowed. Greetings, senior brother Chen Chen. Would you be willing to take a walk with me, junior brother? I have some questions about certain spirit herbs that I'd like to ask you, Chen Chen said. Of course. Jiang Hao nodded. He couldn't refuse because he didn't want to raise suspicions. Whether he practiced the blood wish path or not, it didn't matter. Either way, he wouldn't be let off the hook. What he needed now was to ensure that his cultivation realm was enough to not be questioned about it. Chapter 674, Chapter 674, Blood of Great Power. Chapter 674, Blood of Great Power. Your insight into spirit herbs is quite unique, junior brother. Chen Chen smiled as they walked. Jiang Hao shook his head to tell him that it was just a coincidence. They walked for some time and discussed various aspects of growing spirit herbs. They mainly focused on the ones provided by senior brother Bu Yi, which had boosted Jiang Hao's reputation. The talk was normal, but Jiang Hao soon noticed that the discussion veered deeper into cultivation techniques. These were not deep and profound insights, but rather subtle details of handling spirit herbs to ensure their optimal growth. It was a knowledge that few people could acquire in their entire lifetime. He's quite knowledgeable about spirit herbs. Why is he only an inner sect disciple? Jiang Hao wondered. Judging by senior brother Chen Chen's abilities and knowledge, he shouldn't be just an inner sect disciple, unless he was deliberately concealing his true strength. Just when Jiang Hao thought the conversation would continue along the lines of spirit herbs, Chen Chen suddenly asked, I heard that you practice the blood wish path. The question startled him. Fortunately, Jiang Hao remained calm. Senior brother, you must be joking, said Jiang Hao. I'm not, Chen Chen said. Even when discussing this topic, he didn't make Jiang Hao uncomfortable. The entire sect, and even the other sects, believe that you practice the blood wish path. Junior brother, you must have noticed that many people are keeping their distance from you. Jiang Hao shook his head. I really didn't notice anything like that. He explained that he had drawn some attention because of his work in the spirit herb garden, but people had quickly stopped paying attention to him after that. Chen Chen nodded. Then, junior brother, you should pay more attention. It's not only a rumor within the sect but also outside. The major sects all believe that you practice the bloodwish path. You are in a difficult situation now. Jiang Hao lowered his head. Thank you for letting me know, senior brother, but I'm currently being punished by the sect and cannot leave. Chen Chen nodded. It's better for you this way. It won't be easy for them to find you. Jiang Hao agreed. After a while, the two parted ways. Junior brother, take care, and thank you for clearing my doubts, Chen Chen said before leaving on his sword. His arrival and departure were both brisk, and he had been very open during their conversation. Their interaction had indeed felt pleasant. Jiang Hao, however, couldn't help but wonder whether Chen Chen had formed an opinion about him being a practitioner of the bloodwish path. Several days later, in the middle of June, while tending his stall, Jiang Hao overheard some gossip. It was said that the sect had recently uncovered some infiltrators who were targeting the practitioners of the bloodwish path. I remember that one of these spies was full of resentment when he was caught. He said he wanted to find Jiang Hao from the Cliff of Broken Hearts and kill him. Just who is Jiang Hao? I've heard this name several times now. Is he truly accomplished in the bloodwish path? I don't know. I've only heard that he's an inner sect disciple at the Cliff of Broken Heart, and has achieved quite a few merits within the sect. Jiang Hao found it strange. Why were people still targeting him? Later, he learned that someone had discovered the spies some time ago. It was Chen Chen who had discovered them. Chen Chen had taken care of the issue before coming over to visit him. Jiang Hao was cautious. He didn't tell me but helped capture spies. That is a very strange way to win my favor. If Jiang Hao didn't know the fact that Chen Chen was planning to sacrifice him in the blood pool, he would have thought Chen Chen was a decent senior. Jiang Hao began his preparations for the upcoming mission to Devil's Den. He was waiting for the mission to start while continuing with his daily life. He tended to the spirit herb garden, crafted talismans, and provided guidance to Cheng Chou for his cultivation. During this time, he visited the Lawless Tower and asked about the blood pool. Nangong, you had mentioned it before. The blood pool was said to be located deep within Devil's Den and was formed by the gathering of ancient powerful beings. It was filled with boundless power. Nangong, you also shared information on how to locate the blood pool, which wasn't very complicated. However, it was challenging to gain access to the location. Jiang Hao made his preparations for the mission to Devil's Den. At the same time, the sect selection process was coming to an end, and the departure was scheduled for approximately 1 month later. By mid-July, just 3 days before the mission to Devil's Den, the sect began to gather its elite disciples who were going to the Black Heaven sect. Senior brother, aren't you going? Xiao Li asked as she held the spirit beast. No. You take care, Jiang Hao said. Xiao Li, a true disciple, was expected to go, and so was Chu Chuan. Lin Ji was busy in the mines, and Cheng Chou didn't have the qualifications to participate in this trip. Senior brother Jiang, I heard you can come with us if you want. Chu Chuan was puzzled. The longer he stayed at the Cliff of Broken Hearts, the more he found it strange. It seemed like senior brother Jiang Hao wasn't interested in anything else. Jiang Hao didn't explain his situation to Chu Chuan. Instead, he said, you remember to stick close to Xiao Li and the others. Although Chu Chuan was quite talented, he was still ordinary when compared to Xiao Li. If they encountered danger, he might not be able to protect himself. After all, the Grand Earth Emperor's knowledge was extensive. Being a Foundation establishment realm cultivator among powerful individuals was dangerous. When they leave, the sect would be left with fewer branch masters and disciples. I wonder if someone will take advantage of it. The Heavenly Note sect has angered quite a few people, and this would indeed be a good opportunity for a surprise attack. Perhaps the reason Senior Chen Chen felt that time was running out was because of this. Once they made their move, the sect may be unable to respond immediately due to a lack of people. The attackers would be able to escape. Regardless, Jiang Hao had to act first. In 3 days, Devil's Den will open. I'm almost prepared. Chapter 675. Chapter 675. The birthplace of the heavenly fate. Chapter 675, The birthplace of the heavenly fate. Misfortune Pearl. There was only one day left before the Devil's Den mission. Jiang Hao sat cross-legged in his room and thought about it. He wondered if he should accept the mission this time. In theory, he didn't need to explicitly accept the mission, but if he entered the place without informing anyone, it might turn out to be dangerous. However, he indeed hadn't left the sect, and he didn't know how the law enforcement hall would react if they discovered his absence. Jiang Hao wanted to ask, but he didn't know who to ask because Lui Xingchen had long since disappeared. Sometimes, an undercover agent was indeed important. He had relied on several undercover agents and spies in dangerous situations. Senior Sister Ming Yi and Liu Xingchen had frequently given him useful information. They had helped him numerous times. Now that there were fewer undercover agents in the sect, it was almost inconvenient. After much hesitation, Jiang Hao decided to enter Devil's Den secretly. He didn't accept the mission. It was unlikely that this trip would take too long. If he sensed that it was taking too long, he could come out and accept another mission. The round trip wouldn't take much time. On the day of the mission, he continued to manage the Spirit Herb Garden as usual, and he also listened to Cheng Chou's report on recent events. There were some situations in the outer sect's Spirit Herb Garden but nothing that required his immediate attention. So, he didn't need to worry too much. At noon, Jiang Hao left the Spirit Herb Garden. At the Lawless Tower, Nangongyu questioned Hai Luo. "I've revealed the secret. Why haven't I received what I wanted yet?" Nangongyu asked. Heavenly King Hai Luo gave her a sidelong glance. "Wait a bit longer, and you'll appreciate my guidance." Nangongyu chuckled. "You're just trying to stall for time, aren't you?" Heavenly King Hai Luo remained indifferent. "Who do you think you are? A cultivator at the early stage of the primordial spirit realm, bah. You think I need to stall for time to deal with someone like you? I could defeat you with one hand. Even if you joined forces with old tattered hair here, I would defeat you with my pinky. You little scum," Zhuang Yuzhen said lazily. He didn't wait for Heavenly King Hai Luo to respond. "Is the blood pool you talked about the same one as the one I'm thinking about? You know about it?" Nangongyu was surprised. "Is it really that blood pool?" Zhuang Yuzhen asked in disbelief. "I'm not certain, but there's a good chance it's the same blood pool. Otherwise, why would it be so difficult to find?" Nangongyu said. "Do you know about it, Heavenly King Hai Luo?" Zhuang Yuzhen asked. Hai Luo chuckled but didn't answer him. Nangongyu said, "If it's indeed that blood pool, it will have a significant impact here, especially on the blood wish path. Once the fusion is successful, no one knows what will happen." While they were talking, Yinsho arrived with several black-robed people. All of them were members of the Lawless Tower. They were escorting two pale-faced men. Heavenly King Hai Luo looked at the newcomers in surprise. "Isn't that the teaching master from the Heavenly Tower? What is he doing here?" At that point, an elderly man looked toward the second prison cell in astonishment. "Heavenly King Hai Luo?" "Yes. It is I." Heavenly King Hai Luo nodded. "Is this really the Heavenly Note sect? It seems you don't even know who captured you." Nangongyu chuckled. "It's complicated." The old man sighed. "They ambushed us, and later, they tortured and interrogated us about some overseas matters. They didn't leave us with a choice. I thought I would die if I had no value." "Is that so?" Zhuang Yuzhen asked. "We've been here for over a decade, and it's been quite decent. As long as that person didn't beckon them closer, everything would be fine." At that moment, Nangongyu stared at the man on the other side very carefully. "Heavenly Spirit Tribe? Who are you?" the man asked. "Stop catching up. Walk ahead. You'll have plenty of time to catch up later," said Yinsho. "You can try anything you like, but I'm not going to tell you anything," said the man in disdain. The man beside him sneered. "I've lost my cultivation realm already. What do I have to fear?" Yinsho and the others didn't say much but looked at them rather strangely. Heavenly King Hai Luo looked at them as though he was reminiscing about his past. This left the two men puzzled. Once Yinshaw and the others left, the old man asked, "Why were the three of you looking at us like that?" "The fifth floor is different from the others," Zhuang Yuzhen said. "Indeed, it's different. Here, you have Heavenly King Hai Luo," Nangong Yu said. She hadn't gained anything and was half dead anyway. To this day, she hadn't ever seen Hai Luo's power that he claimed was so great. "Heavenly King Hai Luo?" The old man was astonished. He. "Who is more qualified than me here?" Heavenly King Hai Luo sneered. The old man nodded. But he was still puzzled. Is the fifth floor really that exceptional? They noticed that the captives here were well taken care of. Compared to the ones on the lower floors, they looked like they lived a decent life. Zhuang Yuzhen didn't say much and turned to Nangong Yu. If someone were to control that blood pool, would it have that much of an impact? "I don't know. We have people responsible for the blood wish path. They have more information." "I'm not responsible for that," Nangong Yu said. "Which blood pool are you talking about?" the man from the Heavenly Tower asked. "What do you think?" Nangong Yu asked. "Could it be that blood pool?" The man from the Heavenly Tower looked shocked. "You know about it?" Nangong Yu was even more surprised. "How would you know that blood pool?" "Overseas people have been searching for it for a long time with no results," said the man from the Heavenly Tower. "Which blood pool are you talking about?" asked the young man. Then, he introduced himself. "I am Yin Zichen, a disciple of the Mountain Sea Sword sect." Mountain and Sea Sword sect. Zhuang Yuzhen and the others turned to look at him. It was even more difficult for them to escape from here now. The Heavenly Note sect had managed to capture someone from the Mountain Sea Sword sect. So, everyone should stay put and face their deaths together. "He betrayed the Mountain Sea Sword sect," said the old man in explanation. He then introduced himself. "I am Wu Yang, gatekeeper of the Heavenly Tower. The Heavenly Kings know about me." "So, which blood pool is it?" Yin Zichen asked. "I think it's better if the Heavenly King could provide an answer," Nangong Yu said. Heavenly King Hai Luo glared at her. "Who do you think you are? I don't need to listen to you or answer your questions. If I'm not mistaken, this blood pool contains blood from numerous powerful individuals from ancient times. The most frightening thing is that this pool is very likely the birthplace of the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl," Wu Yang said. Chapter 676, Chapter 676, Meeting Liu Xingchen again. Chapter 676, Meeting Liu Xingchen again. At Devil's Den, Jiang Hao stood deep in the forest and watched a senior in the distance, who was splitting up with the others as they entered. He found that strange. They split up as soon as they came in. This area wasn't too deep inside, so there shouldn't be a need to separate. He had wanted to see if he could locate senior brother Chen Chen and then make his move. This way, he could finish it all at once. When he had just entered, he noticed that the array here had a certain chance of detecting him. It was different from ordinary arrays. It was an array of Devil's Den, after all. The people inside might know that an uninvited guest had arrived, but whether they would inform the others was unknown. Regardless, he didn't have much time to spare. He needed to either find senior Chen Chen as quickly as possible or find the blood pool. It was difficult to find people, but he could find the blood pool more accurately. The blood pool didn't seem to be in a fixed location. Instead, it required the establishment of an array to resonate with it and create a pathway to reach it. One needed to be close to the blood pool for this to be effective. Finding the blood pool involved 3 steps. Firstly, using an array to detect the aura of the blood pool. Secondly, using fresh blood to dye the array red and create resonance. Finally, using a special method to establish a pathway. After that, it depended on the person's abilities. If he couldn't enter the blood pool, Jiang Hao would have to search for senior brother Chen Chen. He had made other preparations, so no matter what the outcome was, he would be able to escape safely. After a short while, the array appeared on the ground. After activation, it indeed had the aura of the blood pool. "It seems I can start here without going deeper." Jiang Hao didn't know what was in the depths of Devil's Den. Hong Yuya hadn't made that clear. But as soon as he looked ahead, He saw the stars flowing backward and falling, and because of this, he dared not approach. Once he made sure that he could proceed, he used his blade to cut himself, and then the blood dripped onto the array. At that moment, the array seemed to come to life. It guided the flow of blood and resonated with something deep within the earth. When the blood covered the entire array, Jiang Hao began to establish a pathway. A red light exploded, and a blood mist enveloped the surroundings. However, after a while, a crimson path appeared. Jiang Hao took a step forward and walked in. At the same time, the power he had left outside also exploded. It erased his traces. His blood was incinerated by the purple flames. Jiang Hao continued forward. Nangong Yu didn't know the way to the blood pool, but she knew it was extremely difficult to get inside. People from the Saint Bandits had mentioned it, so it was likely to be true. As he walked further and further, the blood mist got thicker. Fortunately, the mist dissipated on its own and created a path for him. However, he didn't know what would appear on this path or whom he might encounter. The deeper he went, the denser the mist became. Jiang Hao saw some bones on the path, along with damaged magical treasures. The bloodstains on the ground became more pronounced and turned moist. It felt like he might enter the blood pool if he kept moving forward. Sure enough, blood began to flow on the path. Although it was only on the sides, it gave him the feeling that he was about to walk into a sea of blood. The endless blood mist felt like a black cloud pressing down on him. It was ready to envelop him at any point. He felt as though he would soon become a part of the blood pool. Jiang Hao took a step and felt that he was stepping on something gelatinous. He lowered his head and saw blood. The path was about to be covered entirely by blood. Jiang Hao stood still and hesitated. He wondered if he had taken the wrong path, or if the only way to reach the blood pool was to enter it. After some hesitation, he continued walking forward. Slowly, the path beneath his feet completely turned into blood. He could feel that the deeper he walked, the denser the blood became. The blood mist continued to disperse, and after a long while, a human figure appeared in the blood mist. Jiang Hao was startled when he saw the figure. The mist was now thin enough that he saw the person's face clearly. It was a man with a stubble. He was standing on the surface of a pool made out of blood. His aura was vast and indestructible. It was hard for Jiang Hao to clearly sense anything. He used the daily appraisal ability without hesitation. Astronomical Academy? Jiang Hao was surprised. How could someone like that be here? It appeared that he was still alive. However, one thing was certain, this place was likely the blood pool. Jiang Hao was walking above the blood pool. His plan had failed. The blood pool wasn't at all like what he had thought. It wasn't a pool of water where he could lie in wait. At this point, he couldn't wait for senior brother. Chen. Suddenly, the man opened his eyes. He looked at Jiang Hao. The blood water surged, but it only churned for a moment before settling down. How did you get here? The man asked in a hoarse voice. Jiang Hao frowned. I used a passage to come here. He didn't lie to this person because he didn't sense any danger from him. Furthermore, he could activate the golden ring and leave. It was his escape route. Ji Jin looked at the man in front of him and chuckled. You seem quite young, but you're very confident. I don't understand what you mean, senior, said Jiang Hao. Ji Jin didn't dwell on it much either. He stretched his muscles and looked down at the blood water. He looked melancholic. I haven't seen a living person in many years, especially a young one. Why are you here, senior? Jiang Hao asked. Why are you here? Ji Jin asked in return. I'm here to see the blood pool. I came to see it too. I was arrogant and thought I could find out about the origins of the blood pool's formation, but I overestimated myself. All disasters and hardships are here. I came too early. Ji Jin shook his head with regret. Jiang Hao frowned. He didn't understand what this person was getting at. Still, he made a mental note not to explore the origins of the blood pool. Which sect or school do you belong to? Ji Jin asked. I'm just a wandering cultivator, Jiang Hao said. Nowadays, he had assumed the identity of Smiling San Sheng, so he naturally wouldn't reveal his affiliation with the Heavenly Note sect. A wandering cultivator. I can see that you don't want to tell me the truth. Ji Jin smiled. Let's play a game then. If you win, I'll give you something. If you lose, you'll stay here with me. Thank you for the offer, senior, but I'm not very much into games. Jiang Hao declined his offer with a shake of his head. In that case, answer 2 questions for me. I don't have much knowledge to do that, either. How about I teach you a technique that can suppress all things? I don't think I'm the right person to receive something like that. You're quite stubborn. Do you know who I am? Do you know what I can give you? I don't know, but I didn't come here looking for opportunities. I came here to look for someone. Ji Jin looked at the man in front of him in amusement. I can sense that 2 people have approached the blood pool through unconventional means, but they are only getting close and cannot enter the true blood pool. Is one of them the person you're looking for? As he spoke, images appeared on both sides of the blood pool. On the left was Chen Chen, who was walking around the blood pool but hadn't reached the edge yet. On the right was a man standing in a shallow part of the blood pool. His whole body was covered in blood. He was absorbing fresh blood from the pool. This person was none other than Liu Xingchen, who had gone missing. I've observed both of these individuals for a while. They are somewhat interesting, but they are too far away, and I can't communicate with them, so I'm not very interested. Besides, I don't think they'll be able to reach this place even in 100 years, which makes it even less amusing to me, Ji Jin said. With a smile. Chapter 677, Chapter 677. Starting today, you are Ji Jin. Chapter 677. Starting today, you are Ji Jin. Jiang Hao had expected senior brother Chen Chen's arrival, but he was surprised that Liu Xingchen was here. Upon closer inspection, it was clear that this wasn't the real Liu Xingchen. His aura was blood red, and he seemed to be using the blood pool's blood water to enhance his cultivation. This was most likely the blood demon's ability. So, the blood demon is here to restore itself. Jiang Hao guessed. Even from a distance, he could see that Liu Xingchen's cultivation realm was improving rapidly. To the 3 remnant souls, Liu Xingchen was too weak, and they were eager to boost their strength. He's just 1 step away from Soul Ascension realm. In a short time, Liu Xingchen had ascended from the Golden Core realm to the Soul Ascension realm. It should be because of the blood demon's method. This man has been possessed by the blood demon, Ji Jin said with a smile. Both of these individuals are unique, particularly the blood demon. He has been here for quite a while and seems very eager to enhance his cultivation realm. Do you think the blood demon's possession has been successful? Jiang Hao asked. This person's situation is very complex. Ji Jin thought for a moment. Not only is he possessed by the blood demon, but he also has the dragon and the sorcerer within him. What surprises me is that these 3 beings coexist in the same body without competing with each other. It's quite unusual. Jiang Hao was amazed by Ji Jin's insights. Do you think there's a chance of survival for someone possessed by these 3 entities? Why don't you tell me? Do you want to play a game with me? Ji Jin asked again. Before Jiang Hao could refuse, Ji Jin said, my presence here means that I'm blocking your way. If you want to proceed further, you'll need to defeat me. We have the same cultivation realm, so we'll fight on equal terms. If you win, you can continue forward and receive a gift from me. If you lose, you tell me how you came in. How about it? Jiang Hao looked at Ji Jin. He could assess Liu Xingchen's condition on his own. He needed to find senior brother Chen Chen as quickly as possible, and there was no need to waste time here unless Ji Jin could tell him how to reach senior brother Chen Chen. Is he the one you're looking for? Ji Jin asked as he looked toward senior brother Chen Chen. Is there any way, senior, that I can get over there? Jiang Hao asked. There's no way. Ji Jin shook his head. At least not here. But if you go deeper, you might be able to use a secret technique to reach different places. Do you know this secret technique? I'd like to learn it. Do I really have to fight with you, senior? Jiang Hao asked. Of course. Ji Jin nodded. Why do you want to fight me, senior? Jiang Hao was curious. At that moment, a blood-red light emanated from Liu Xingchen as he advanced. Moreover, the blood water in the blood pool continued to flow into him. It was uncertain what realm he would ascend to next. On the other side, senior brother Qian Chen had finally arrived at the blood pool and was establishing a connection with it. Blood wish path? That's quite rare. This is the first time I've seen someone using blood wish path to come here. Once integrated, it should be quite remarkable, Ji Jin said. He shifted his gaze back to Jiang Hao. It's been many years since I've seen people, and I don't think there are people who can enter and leave freely in this place. However, your condition is exceptionally strange, and I think you will be able to leave. So, I want to give you something, but I don't want to give it to a weakling. So, I want to fight you to see if you're capable. Why don't you leave, senior? Jiang Hao asked. I can't. Ji Jin lowered his head and sighed. This place is a prison, and I am the warden guarding a prisoner. A prisoner? Jiang Hao was puzzled. Yes, my body is the prison. I am the guardian, and the prisoner is the evil within my heart, Ji Jin said. Jiang Hao looked at the man before him. Is there a way you can leave this place? Only if I understand the truth. I need to understand the truth of heaven and earth. What do you think the truth is? Ji Jin stared at Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao frowned. At that moment, blood-red light appeared again. It meant that Qian Chen was on the verge of success. Jiang Hao had no intention of delaying any further. His folding fan transformed into a long knife. Senior, please forgive me. Finally decided to make a move. Let me be clear. Although I've suppressed my cultivation realm, I'm not an ordinary person in the same realm as you. Don't claim later that I took advantage of you, Ji Jin said with a smile. Jiang Hao lowered his head and swung his long knife. Boom. The half-moon blade descended. Ding. A crisp sound rang out. A single finger had blocked the long knife. The strike was impressive. I almost couldn't block it, Ji Jin said with a smile. Rumble. Power surged from that single finger and pushed Jiang Hao back. However, he wasn't discouraged. He was shocked by the power contained within that single finger, as well as Ji Jin's incomprehensible control over it. This meant that Ji Jin's cultivation realm was astonishingly high. Under normal circumstances, it would be impossible to defeat such an opponent. Jiang Hao sheathted his half-moon blade. The primordial heavenly blade appeared in his hands. He felt strangely excited. As smiling San Sheng, it was always a treat to encounter a worthy opponent. Senior, get ready. He used the third form of the heavenly blade, Meteor. Jiang Hao transformed into a blade of light and charged straight at Ji Jin. This time, Ji Jin frowned. If Jiang Hao was a fierce beast before, this time, he was an ancient, powerful creature. He was much stronger than Ji Jin had expected. Boom. A single blow sent Ji Jin reeling backward. However, he quickly began to counterattack, and Jiang Hao did the same. Rumble. For a moment, the two of them created a storm on the sea of blood. They would disappear and reappear in a blur. Jiang Hao was surrounded by radiant blade intent, while golden characters revolved around Ji Jin. The blade light collided with the golden light. Boom. The two of them were sent flying, and a purple aura rapidly covered Jiang Hao. He launched another attack. The heavenly blade descended and forced Ji Jin back. Jiang Hao used the reappearance of the hidden spirit ability. The majestic aura surged around Jiang Hao and shot forward like a giant wave crashing toward Ji Jin. He then used the second form of the heavenly blade, mountain suppression. The giant wave of energy seemed to contain the weight of 10,000 mountains. The mountain sea seal appeared and blended with the force of 10,000 mountains. At that moment, the vast force, which was like a tidal wave, swept through the blood mist and shook the surroundings. The attack targeted Ji Jin. Ji Jin, who had initially believed he had a chance to win, froze in disbelief. Was this really someone in the middle stage of the return to Void Realm? Boom. The blade came to a halt right above Ji Jin's head, and a giant wave surged behind him without end. "Senior, you've lost," Jiang Hao said. "I know. You don't need to remind me." Ji Yujin felt uneasy. He had originally thought that he could win as long as he put in enough effort. But who would have thought that he would be defeated after just a few strikes? "So, will you give me the secret technique now?" Jiang Hao extended his hand. Ji Yujin raised his hand. The words Ji Yujin appeared in the palm of his hand. Following that, the words floated toward Jiang Hao's hand. "I'm giving you this. As long as I remain here, no one will dare to question your identity as Ji Yujin. In the Astronomical Academy, only a few people will be above you." "Quite interesting, isn't it?" Jiang Hao looked surprised. "What do you mean?" Chapter 678, Chapter 678, It's Too Late. Chapter 678, It's Too Late. "What do you mean, Senior?" Jiang Hao asked as he looked at the thing in his hand. It must be some form of identity rune for the Astronomical Academy. Did that mean he had been recruited to the Astronomical Academy? "Do you feel wronged for serving the Astronomical Academy?" Ji Yujin asked with a smile. "I'm not capable, Senior." Jiang Hao shook his head and sighed. "Your greatness is beyond my reach, and your knowledge is beyond comparison. Impersonating someone like that will surely bring disaster. Why make it difficult for me, Senior?" Ji Yujin burst into laughter. He was surprised by the words he heard. "Don't worry, even if you don't say anything, they won't dare to test you. And they might even misinterpret your words and derive real wisdom from them. It might even lead to breakthroughs. So, don't pay too much attention to it. I gave this to you just to bring some new shade to the Astronomical Academy. They haven't seen any changes there for a long time. Without change, there is no growth." Ji Yujin sighed. "The path of cultivation is about understanding certain principles. The more you know, the easier it is to progress. That's why I never understood what the absolute truth was." Jiang Hao felt that there should be a way to remove Ji Yujin's identity from his body, but for now, he didn't think too much about it. Instead, he asked for the secret technique. "There is no secret technique. You'll understand as you go. Whether you can find the one you are looking for depends entirely on luck," Ji Yujin said with a smile. Jiang Hao lowered his head and didn't ask any further questions. Instead, he turned and walked further inside. "The further you go, the more you'll endure, and what you see and hear will be mixed with the disasters of the era. A slight misstep can lead to being trapped in a cage. You should think carefully about it," Ji Yujin said as a warning. "Thank you for the warning, Senior," Jiang Hao said without looking back. Time was running out. As Ji Yujin watched Jiang Hao's receding back, he suddenly asked, "What is your truth?" Jiang Hao paused for a moment. "The truth is under the heavenly blade, and nothing more." Ji Yujin was momentarily stunned. Then, he smiled. Youth was a wonderful thing. Watching the figure continue on its path, he asked, "How old are you?" Jiang Hao didn't pause this time, and Ji Yujin didn't mind. "I touched you during the exchange. So, I know your appearance is fake. I can vaguely guess your real age from your vitality. If my guess is correct, you are somewhere between 30 and 40 years old. Is that correct?" Jiang Hao stopped and turned to look at the man behind him with a smile. "Senior, aren't you going to ask for my name?" "I won't ask." Ji Yujin shook his head and smiled. "Because whatever I hear will be a lie." Jiang Hao chuckled and shook his head. Then, he continued on his way. Ji Yujin watched Jiang Hao and his eyes lit up with enthusiasm. A return to Void Realm cultivator in his 30s, with an incredibly powerful strength. Even his mental state is extraordinary. Only a few have such talent. I've done my best to tie him to the academy. Whether the academy can hold on to him in the end will depend on their fate. From the moment he saw Jiang Hao, he had planned everything. He was so young. The person might be extraordinary to be able to enter this place so easily. His cultivation technique was indeed unusual. Ji Yujin slowly closed his eyes. He had done everything he could for the academy. Now, he could focus on the battle against the blood pool. Jiang Hao walked on the surface of the blood pool. He remained vigilant about the changes in his surroundings. As he went deeper, he could feel something affecting him. He even heard miserable cries and pleas for mercy. After the voices appeared, some images began to emerge. Many people were being captured, and blood was converging from all directions. This was the bloodshed caused by man-made conflicts. Soon, he also heard curses, each one falling on his ears and manifesting upon him. But in an instant, the curses formed and then began to disintegrate. Jiang Hao was astonished. It was this powerful. As the curses appeared, he took out the pearl. Instantly, the curses disappeared, and the illusions and sounds vanished with them. It was the heavenly fate misfortune pearl capable of suppressing all curses. When he took out the heavenly fate misfortune pearl, he felt that the entire blood pool seemed to react strangely. It seemed to be keeping its distance from him. It seems that the heavenly fate misfortune pearl has a restraining effect on the blood pool. So, where is Senior Chen Chen? Jiang Hao looked to the left and the right. Logically, Senior Chen Chen should be on the left, but his exact location was unclear. For now, he could only head toward the center. The further he went in, the thinner the fog became, and the more he could see and hear. There was the sound of the wind. Then, he heard a faint conversation. You can't continue like this. This body is suitable, but introducing this blood will destroy its inherent value. The voice was low but familiar. Jiang Hao recognized it immediately. It was Liu Xingchen. Is he nearby? Jiang Hao looked to the right but saw no one. Don't worry. The blood here contains the power of many strong cultivators, and I can filter out the harmful things. I can even advance 2 minor realms. There won't be any issues. If the filtering is good enough, I can use my true dragon power to temper this body and raise it by 2 minor realms. At that point, give me the blood, and I can use witchcraft to enter the return to void realm. After that, I'll go find the essence of plants and trees, and I can continue to improve. Good. Let's raise this body to a sufficiently high realm as soon as possible. It will help us deal with problems better. Jiang Hao was surprised. It was the same voice but with different tones. It sounded like 3 people talking to each other with the same voice. Is it the blood demon, the true dragon, and the sorcerer? Jiang Hao immediately thought of the 3 remnant souls. For now, their top priority was to raise Liu Xingchen's cultivation realm. According to what they said, they needed to ascend to the return to void realm inside the blood pool before leaving. After that, they would continue advancing elsewhere. Following this path of advancement, Jiang Hao felt that he might be surpassed soon. But wouldn't such rapid advancement have any negative consequences? It was too fast. He could only observe and act accordingly the next time he encountered Liu Xingchen. It made him feel anxious. He couldn't afford to be overtaken. Lowering his gaze to the blood pool, Jiang Hao sighed. Whether it was Senior Chen Chen or the blood demon, they were both using the blood pool to enhance their cultivation realms, and he seemed to have no idea how to utilize it. Although he felt regretful, he didn't mind. He already had enough opportunities. He didn't need these and wouldn't push for them. At that moment, a voice sounded from the side. It was Senior Chen Chen. I didn't expect the blood pool to exceed my expectations, but it's fortunate that I've established some connection. This should be enough. It's time to leave. Success or failure hinges on this moment. Jiang Hao sighed inwardly. Time was running out. At the same time, outside Devil's Den, some people gathered together. They had captured many fellow disciples and were now entering Devil's Den. We haven't found Jiang Hao from the Cliff of Broken Hearts. It looks like Senior Chen Chen will have to take matters into his own hands. Let's put that aside for now. Our senior should have succeeded by now. This is the final step. Let's go. We have no way back now. We must assist Senior in successfully establishing the Blood Wish alchemical path before the sect reacts. This time, we have to play our part. Chapter 679. Chapter 679. Do you regret it? Chapter 679. Do you regret it? Jiang Hao stood on the blood pool and looked in the direction where he heard Chen Chen's voice. He couldn't help but sigh. The other person had completed the task, which meant his plan had failed. It's time to leave. It seems we can't wait for the task to be completed. Under normal circumstances, these people would surely wait for the mission to be completed. However, these were not normal times. Chen Chen had chosen a path that was in opposition to the Heavenly Note sect, and the sooner he completed it, the better. Jiang Hao looked at the blood pool and sighed. He thought of going inside to see if there was a way to find Senior Chen Chen, as he seemed to have a certain connection with the blood pool. As he walked further inside, Jiang Hao felt that the blood pool became clearer. The changes were suppressed by the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl. After about an hour, Jiang Hao felt ripples in the blood beneath his feet, like a tide rising and falling. This change puzzled him because it had remained still before. After making sure that his golden ring was activated, he walked toward the source of these ripples. The deeper he went, the larger the ripples became. Jiang Hao looked deeper and felt something eerie. Where he stood, the blood pool was covered in a blood-red hue, while the area beyond the ripples seemed to lack the crimson color. It appeared gray in an overcast sky. This meant that he was approaching the source. Jiang Hao recognized the large green sphere in the sky. It was the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl that the end of all things was after. I didn't expect it to be here, and it seems to be trying to absorb the blood pool, he muttered. What puzzled him was why the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl couldn't absorb the blood sea. Logically, it should absorb flesh and blood. The fact that the blood pool remained relatively unaffected was strange. Jiang Hao turned back. The Earth Extreme Silent Pearl was probably in a sealed state, but it would be best to keep a distance from it. During his observation, he glanced down to the edge of the blood pool and saw that it extended down for hundreds of feet. This was no longer a pool. It was a blood sea. I found the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl, but this was not good because once the end of all things found it, the Heavenly Note sect would become the center of a storm. He might be in danger. I need to find a way to contact someone from either Bright Moon sect or Clear Sky School and urge them to take it away. These two sects were reliable. The only concern was whether they would destroy the Heavenly Note sect to ensure the safety of the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl. The probability of that happening was quite high. Jiang Hao sighed. If that were the case, going there would be akin to asking for disaster. He needed to find a way to obtain the pearl before the end of all things and give it to Xing for safekeeping. However, obtaining it was not an easy task. The real entrance was definitely not here. I should ask Hong Yuye about it when I get back. Jiang Hao began searching the area to see if he could sense the connection between the blood pool and others. Suddenly, he stopped in his tracks. He realized that he had been in the blood pool all along. It was difficult for him to sense connections with the blood pool. To do that, he needed to enter the blood pool. Jiang Hao didn't hesitate. He held the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl and entered the blood pool. As soon as he entered, he felt the blood water transmitting information and merging with him. This was due to the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl. In just a few breaths, Jiang Hao sensed 3 connections related to the blood pool. One was weak. It was likely Senior Chen Chen. One had a strong presence. That must be Liu Xingchen, who was controlled by the blood demon. The last one felt vast and close. It was likely Ji Yu Jin. With that confirmed, Jiang Hao left the blood pool and quickly headed toward Senior Chen Chen's location. Entering the blood pool had changed his perception of the surroundings, and he could even influence the blood pool's changes. It seemed that he was gradually gaining control over the blood pool. In Devil's Den, a group of people in black robes had captured many disciples, and these captives were looking at the black-robed individuals in surprise. "Are you all insane?" A disciple at the late stage of Foundation Establishment realm shouted angrily. "Senior brother Shu Feng, there's no need to struggle. We brought you here, and we've thought about the consequences," said a black-robed woman calmly. They were currently standing in front of a forest and waiting for someone to come out. "Senior sister Liang Yu, are you trying to destroy everything, including yourselves?" Qi Yang asked. He was unwilling to accept what was happening. They had never expected that their senior sister, who had always been close to them, would actually turn against them. She even claimed she needed them for a sacrifice. Junior brother Qi Yang, given the current situation, there's no need for more words. You don't understand us, Liang Yu said. Do you remember Jiang Hao? Your friend from the outer sect. I remember, Qi Yang said. We intended to capture him this time. He is truly exceptional and ranks at the top with remarkable achievements, and his rapid cultivation progress is astonishing. At such a young age, he has already reached the middle stage of the Golden Core realm, and we need such a genius, Liang Yu said with a sigh. Both Xu Feng and Qi Yang were taken aback. They remained silent. Naturally, they had been keeping an eye on Jiang Hao's progress, even though they didn't discuss it openly. It seems like you do regret it. Who would have thought that the person everyone tried to ignore like the plague back then would now be on an important journey? We can only look up to him, Liang Yu said with a wry smile. Fortunately, I met senior brother Chen Chen. Otherwise, I might have just died somewhere. At that moment, a streak of blood-red light appeared, and Liang Yu breathed a sigh of relief. Senior brother Chen Chen is here. Chapter 680, Sworn to protect Senior Kan Chen. Chapter 680, Sworn to protect Senior Kan Chen. Once Jiang Hao sensed the presence of senior brother Chen Chen, he quickly chased after him. Unlike others, he was not affected by the blood pool. He moved faster than usual. The blood pool actively cooperated with him. This made Jiang Hao suspect a connection between the heavenly fate misfortune pearl and the blood pool. It was not merely one-sided like he expected. He couldn't find an exact answer to this mystery, and he didn't have time to think about it right now. After some time, he finally caught up with senior brother Chen Chen. He had left the blood pool, and it appeared that he was returning to Devil's Den. When he looked back, all he saw was endless blood mist, as if it was a seal covering the blood pool from below. As for why the blood pool had a connection to the heavenly fate misfortune pearl, he couldn't come to any conclusions. Maybe even someone like Ji Yu Jin didn't know. Next time, he might have a chance to ask him. If he could fully control the blood pool, it might be possible to let senior brother Chen Chen go, but he didn't dare to attempt something like that. People changed. Even if he didn't mean any harm right now, he might not be so forthcoming next time. When Kai Tian was in despair, he genuinely wanted to sacrifice his life. He was willing to risk it all. However, after Jiang Hao fulfilled his revenge, he was not willing to cooperate at all. Kai Tian was weak, so Jiang Hao didn't need to worry about him. But Ji Yu Jin was different. He was very powerful. He couldn't be reckless. After some thought, Jiang Hao noticed that the blood mist was beginning to dissipate. He found himself standing in a forest surrounded by blood-red clouds. Boom! A deafening explosion rang out, and a mist of blood filled the air. You won't get away with killing your fellow disciples like this, said Qi Yang furiously. I know you've been wronged, but the path I need to take requires me to do this, Chen Chen said with regret. I didn't want to lay a hand on you, but forging a new path always demands sacrifice. It's human nature. You and I are just a part of the big picture. I can't stop now. We've worked hard for so many years and hidden for so long. It was all for today, and no one can stop us from succeeding. No one can stop us, said a group of black-robed individuals loudly. You're insane. All of you are insane. This is the blood wish path. Senior sister Liang Yu, you've fallen into a trap. Qi Yang roared. I know. I've always known that this is the blood wish path, and I willingly embraced it. Senior brother Chen Chen never forced me, Liang Yu said seriously. You've been corrupted, Qi Yang said insistently. Enough. She won't listen to us, Xu Feng said. From a distance, Jiang Hao watched this unfold. His gaze was fixed on Qi Yang. It's been so many years, he murmured silently. Qi Yang had been his friend in the outer sect, but they had grown distant over the years. They hadn't seen each other in over a decade. He hadn't avoided him, nor had he made any special efforts to find him. The sect was vast, and they didn't run into each other. Meanwhile, outside in the forest, Chen Chen sat cross-legged and meditated. He was surrounded by blood. A few blood gourds beside him oozed blood. The blood encircled him and gradually merged with one another. Jiang Hao knew that Chen Chen had begun the process, and he intended to complete it. Qi Yang, it's your turn. Liang Yu brought Qi Yang closer to Chen Chen. Senior sister, you won't get away with this. Qi Yang roared. You don't need to worry about that, she said and struck out with her palm. Bam! As her palm descended, a blade of light swept through and severed Liang Yu's arm. Blood gushed out. Everyone was shocked. A mocking laughter echoed all around. I've seen something quite interesting here. Who is it? Liang Yu and the others looked around warily. Who is this? The laughter sounded from all directions. Lift your heads and look up at the sky. I'm right here. They looked up and saw a figure standing in midair. He was holding a long blade in the dazzling sunlight. The blade light whizzed down. Boom. The group was pushed back, but no one was harmed. A figure with a large shield blocked the attack. Oh! Jiang Hao was surprised. There were indeed powerful individuals here. A man in the early stage of the return to Void Realm stood before the group. Fellow disciple, please don't meddle in our affairs. He wore a black robe, and his aura was restrained. His return to Void Realm's aura gradually manifested. Jiang Hao found it hard to believe that such a powerful individual was influenced by Chen Chen. Don't let him get close. Don't let him disrupt Senior Chen Chen's plan, said the return to Void Realm cultivator. At this moment, formations appeared around them, and storms formed. It provided both defense and offense. Dozens of powerful individuals around them jointly maintained the formation. Fellow disciple, we have a formation, and our cultivation realm isn't weak. Why do you want to challenge us? What do you want? Can't you just go your ways? CNE man as Kia. Jiang Hao pointed at Chen Chen. Can I have him? No, said all the black-robed individuals. Their auras surged. In that case, I won't hold back, Jiang Hao said. He didn't intend to waste words with these people. He moved through the air. His blade's killing intent spread. Boom. The blade intent collided with the formation. Crack. The formation shattered. With the long blade in hand, he continued forward. He used the first form of the heavenly blade, moonslaying. The individuals maintaining the formation were pushed back, and Jiang Hao went straight for the large shield. Boom. The moonlight penetrated the shield, which broke with a crack. The defense artifact was obliterated. The man was also sent flying. At that moment, Chen Chen stood before them. The moonslaying technique continued to descend on them. Just as it was about to strike Chen Chen, senior sister Liang Yu shielded him by throwing herself in front of him. She took the full force of the attack. Jiang Hao looked at her in surprise. Why are you doing this? Don't you dare disturb senior brother Chen Chen, Liang Yu said as she spit out blood. Jiang Hao looked at her. Do you know that he intends to sacrifice you too? After he is done with others, it'll be your turn. No. I don't care. Liang Yu roared and struck out with her palm. Boom. Jiang Hao retreated. At the moment he retreated, everyone shielded Chen Chen, and they confronted Jiang Hao. We pledge to protect senior brother Chen Chen with our lives, the return to Void Realm cultivator shouted. You'll have to kill us first if you want to harm him, someone else said. Jiang Hao looked at them and laughed. Then, he waved his hand and sent the remaining disciples flying backward. They all fainted with the impact. Qi Yang was among them. Since that's the case, I'll do you a favor and let you die at the hands of your senior brother Chen Chen, Jiang Hao said with a smile. Just as they felt relieved, Jiang Hao said, and then I will kill your senior brother Chen Chen to avenge you. How about that? Aren't I being good to you? Ha ha ha. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,